This is going to be another episode of Summoning Insight. We are back. And of course, it wouldn't be a week in esports, Monty, if we could ever just go, and now to the games. So over in the LEC, we had these games between Fnatic and G. Like, I'd love to live in a world, Monty, where like we go all the way back in time and what we actually originally planned. Do you remember the concept of Summoning Insight for real? Monty told me, because if people don't know, here's a little free piece of lore for you. I didn't come up with the concept of Summoning Insight. In fact, I never planned to do a podcast in League of Legends. What happened was, the first time I went to Korea and met Monty, he told me when we were just having like a drink, I think it was when you had that, like, did you have like a fire or like a barbecue or something, like a fire pit? So I can't remember if you had something on the top of your apartment. Didn't you have something like a fire you could sit around or something? And we sat around this fire, and I remember you telling me something like that you wanted to do a podcast, because you even said, I mean, listen, it's 10 years later, Monty, and also these ships have sailed. It's because you said there's only people like Travis do them, and they're all just garbage. And it's people like just the players like basically like blowing each other, just going like, oh, we're all brilliant, and just saying all nonsense. So you said you wanted to have a real podcast where like people talked like adults and actually like brought real experts on to discuss the game, not just drama in the scene, to discuss actually like who are the best teams and what they do and what's the macro, what's the meta. By the way, a naive dream, Monty. It's okay. This is a long time ago. We all had these visions of a utopian esports where people wanted that content. But sadly, it did turn out they did just want the TMZ all along. So then we're going to start with some straight fire TMZ. Don't worry.
So here's the problem, Thorin, is that now we here at Last Free Nation find ourselves, because Riot actually figured out how to like collar everyone else and put them on leashes in the scene.
True.
Because you're either leashed by the fact that you're Travis and you need access to the press room and to players through Riot or to Riot executives themselves for interviews, or you're a co-streamer who literally can't say anything bad about Riot. So we find ourselves in the unfortunate situation, Thorin, of being the only people who can actually address certain issues that pop up in the scene. And unfortunately, there were like 3 different ones this past week, and they are in order. Quickshot gets fired, which is shocking. The new announcement about the adjustments to the franchise system, which nobody is going to say bad things about or point out any kind of flaws with, because they are either a team or, again, one of these leashed public personalities. And the third one is VCS possible match fixing that has shut down the Vietnamese league. Now, what is crazy is all of these things individually are fucking massive pieces of news that really affect the scene, but nobody is talking about them. Nobody.
Oh, by the way, you could even, as an aside, we'll see if we get time. There's even that one where Riot employees can't stream stuff. Even Riot games.
There's another one.
Is like, this is an insane world. That's like a minor one. I even agree, though. That's not even a top story money. That piece of insanity is just like by the by at this point. No, the saddest thing is, by the way, Monty, the way I know that you're right as well, this is why we have, in many ways, just come back to where we were 10 years ago when we started Summoning Insight. Because if people don't remember, what actually was fire about when I went on that, like, whose league is it anyway, and did the joke of like the beta of Summoning Insight, is if you think about 3 of the main things I did, it was that I was the guy who just came along like, hey, you know, the Emperor has no clothes. And they were like, what are you doing? You're supposed to say that. His Highness is dressed fantastically, Thorin. What are you talking about? That's the whole vibe I got, mix. If you remember, I'll give you 3 little angles from memory that I remember that I did. So one was when I came on, Travis tried to do that thing that everyone used to do back then, where even though we did it for real, Monty, we did watch all the regions of the world. He would do that thing where he treated it like a magazine show, and he'd address, even though, by the way, he's the most LCS through and through, knows fuck all about anything else. He was trying to do stuff like an over and OGN, like they had a great semi-final of the final, and he was implying on this episode that final that SKT won 3-0 over MVP Ozone when they were frauds, and it was like a fucking the season that SKT went undefeated. Before that final, he was like, it should be a great final or something. If you remember, I just go like, will it be a great? What are you talking about? Like, have you watched the games? Like, it's good. So I mean, so first of all, it's like that sort of a fake thing of like everything's great, and I'm watching all the things which they weren't. It showed they never watched the games. Then also, if you remember, like I make loads of jokes and jabs at Riot, and you can see they get really uncomfortable. I make those jokes, like I said something like that Dustin Beck like approves of like smoking weed or something. You can already see Travis like,
I mean, he definitely did. Let's be clear. That guy probably approved a little bit too much of smoking weed, in my opinion.
No, 100%. Of course, he looked like he was straight out of like a frat movie from the 2000s or something, mate. And then the last one, which I think is fire, because this just shows what Travis's content was and how it will never be what I am, is that at one point in the show, and anyone who, I have an amazing memory, guys, anyone who remembers this highlight video will remember this moment. There's a moment where Travis, as we're talking, just decides to relay something from Twitch chat from someone who's Sneaky's girlfriend. Now, here's the thing. You know her, Monty. She's actually the woman who went on to marry Sean Gares, if people don't know.
Yep.
But at the time, I don't think she'd even actually started with a sponsor. I think she was still just Sneaky's girlfriend. I don't even know she had actually a position. Maybe she was like a first job in esports. So the point was, Travis was trying to do it like some celebrity thing, like, hey, and some celebrity's girlfriend. So as you should, because at the time it's just a random person. I'm just like, who gives a fuck what that person says? What are you talking about? So I do a joke. I go like, oh, and I've got another thing for you, Travis. Twitch chat says poggers, and like, I do a whole thing. It's like, that whole thing was like, because I could already see at that point, mate, like, how can the game start with like a fake show where like we're all just like fucking talking about nonsense and no one's ever talking about the game? Like, we're on a show about a video game and no one's talking about the match. Like, we're just talking about weird scene drama and stuff. And the difference is we're going to do that now, but we're actually going to make it like fucking insightful because, mate, let's just start with the Quickshot thing. What's funny is if we're actually being real, if I had to like do a triage, Monty, of like what should the world care about, the Quickshot one wouldn't be number one. It'd probably be the match fixing or the model or economic distribution. That's going to affect more people. But to me and you, I do care about this Quickshot one a lot, mate.
I care about it
because not only was what he fired over absolute fucking bobkiss. Like, I'm being serious, Monty. When you know that isn't even something he himself chose to put online, that should almost be treated like in court where it's like inadmissible evidence. So, where you like obtain evidence illegally as a policeman and then they get thrown out. You're not allowed to show, even though you saw that thing, you have to essentially strike it from the record and pretend you didn't. Like, you don't get to know that he said that. Some dickhead uploaded that. And then secondly, I'll just throw this out there, Monty. 1 million fucking people have now said this line. They go, yeah, and besides, he did it in Germany too. Have you noticed, Monty, in that video, that below him on the desk, it says play-ins? Yes. Now, Monty, where did they shoot play-ins from?
They shot it from Dublin, from the Striker studio.
No, not Germany then. So as usual, Reddit and people like Reddit took an assumption and made it the base fact that they built a pyramid of logic off. Well done, guys. Well done. Well done. Great job there. Great job. And then lastly, I'll just throw this out there. The other thing that's insane to me as well is this. I can't even believe, by the way, that thread was almost like, it was like Quickshot's leave it, and then it was like a little bit of this discussion. How was the whole thing not just like, holy shit, Riot has stabbed Quickshot in the back? The guy who gave 10 years to that product. By the way, think about where the fuck the EU LCS was when it came along. You're all going to go, it was great. I loved Joe and D, man. No one was fucking watching. The league was a joke compared to the American League. There was no money in it either, by the way. And in fact, you'll know this, the premise was not only did players want to go to LCS, but eventually when G2 was even the number one team in the world, they were asking, could we just transfer and have an LCS franchise instead? Like, LEC was not the shit, and Quickshot didn't do it all, but he was a massive part of what changed that. And that whole vibe that you love of LEC, he is that vibe.
Yeah, and by the way, guys, like, we've known about this for a while. We have hinted at this on the show. The reason why we didn't bring this up at Worlds when it happened, when the leak happened, is because we didn't want to be responsible for adding more, because we thought this was stupid and worth ignoring. So we thought, we didn't know how this was going to turn out. We thought maybe, oh, well, he's not going to be at Worlds anymore. And then, oh, maybe he'll just not be here for winter. They're just going to like sit him for a little bit. And then they'll just come back without an announcement or with like very little fanfare and it'll all be chill. And we thought basically by us bringing this up publicly, it was going to cause more PR damage to Quickshot and therefore potentially affect his career. So we did not want to be responsible for that. But now that everything's done and he is not a part of Riot anymore, we kind of have to talk about this because it's actually so stupid, the reasons why he's not part of Riot anymore.
Before we get into the specifics, I'll say one thing. I saw LS actually did a reaction to his video, like the leaving video, and LS nailed it, mate. This is also, like, that video is a testament to who Quickshot is, because that is the classiest fucking departure video from someone who was absolutely fucking screwed and stalled up the river in a way that's totally unfair and unjust, by the way. I'll even say that. It's unjust what they did to him. And they're not even notice there's not even any fanfare when he leaves, Monty. They're not saying why he's leaving, but there's no like, thanks, Quickshot, or like the whole week's like, oh, and goodbye to Quickshot, of course, and we get around with. There's none of that, which implies that it's for a fucked up reason. It implies that you idiots, right, aren't even smart enough to figure out how to make this look legit. So the worst thing is, like, I also think he's just such a fucking, he's just so worth his weight in gold. He didn't even take his shots on the way out the door, guys. He even's just so classy. He was just sort of like, because here's the thing, I'll guarantee this is how Quickshot thinks of it. One, when he thinks of the LEC and Riot, he thinks of the people he works with on a daily basis. I bet he is fine with those people. I bet they're not the people that stabbed him in the back. And then also, when you have built something like he did with the LEC, you don't want to just walk out the door and go, right, burn it to the ground. You want it to, you hope it, even if it's naive, you hope it succeeds without you and continues to flourish because it's your baby. That's why this whole thing burns me so badly, Monty, because it's so rare people ever get to be in a position like Quickshot was. Then have the success they do. And then I'll just say this, guys, bear in mind, he didn't do this incident. Aside from this incident, what's he ever done wrong? What scandal was he ever involved in? The joke is, even for scoring attempted to hint at it, nothing's ever come out because there was nothing as far as I know. It was nonsense. This guy never did anything bad as far as I can tell.
He was very well liked by his peers. I loved working with him. He truly is like a very kind and genuine human being. You know, what you see, he's a lot like Atlas. It's like what you see, guys, what you experience on the cast is exactly who he is. You know, what you see, and Ordella.
That's not fake. Their enthusiasm is absolutely real. They really are those kinds of, look, I'm not that person. They're the people who can wake up and really be like, great game for League of Legends. Like, I ain't that guy, Monty, but I can appreciate the people who are, because those are the people who are the lifeblood of your game. They actually care about the game. They love fucking League of Legends. As weird as that is, they actually do.
For those of you who don't know what happened, here's what happened. Play-ins was occurring last year. Basically, the games weren't being played in Korea. The broadcast was being done out of their remote studio in Dublin. So it's called Striker. It's where one of their control rooms is in Europe. They do a lot of the production for LEC currently out of there instead of Berlin, which is also, I think, another reason why they fired a bunch of the full-time people in LEC in Berlin, because they've been outsourcing a lot of the work to Striker in Dublin. And so a lot of the technical aspects of production actually take place in Ireland. What happened was Quickshot, there was a video that was released by Goldborg on his Twitter account that showed basically a rehearsal of Quickshot. I will not do the motion, guys, because you will clip it and take it out of context. But there is a motion where DJs hold one of their headphones and raise one of their hands in the air. Right, which is like them amping up the crowd. You've seen every DJ at every club ever do this.
By the way, if you ever rewatch the video and you listen to what I'm saying now, it's actually not even as explicit as you'd imagine. It's more just like doing that almost, you know. It's not actually even as ridiculous. It's more just that he says the line. He says the dreaded Austrian painter name, didn't he? So
exactly. So he's doing the DJ thing with like one hand in the air and like bouncing his hand up and down. And they're clearly...
It's supposed to be as a warm-up before they cast, right? It's to like get loose or something, I'm guessing, right?
So you guys, on sets, there a lot of times the audio directors will like play upbeat music to kind of like get everybody jazzed up on the set beforehand. It's very, very common. Brings some energy into the room, makes people happy. And so they're listening to some music while they're on the analyst desk. And so what Quickshot says, there's like very loud music, and what you can kind of hear him say is, do the Hitler, which is obviously like a reference to the Nazi salute. But here's Thorin, what really makes me pissed is that people don't even understand the differences between kinds of humor. Like, this isn't some sort of joke that is like some Hitler's good. That's not the punchline, is it? In fact, it's not Hitler's good. It's not some sort of off-color Holocaust joke. It's not something that's glorifying Hitler. Yeah. Thorin, literally what we call this kind of humor is satire. And the reason is because it is making the Nazi salute look silly by comparing it to a DJ's performance. That is the definition of satire, guys. It is humor designed to mock and degrade the subject. So there is no really bad taste to this. There is no glorification of Hitler. There is no glorification of Nazis. It is Nazi satire. That is what it is. And
I'll give you an example, Monty. I'll give you an example. If I made fun of someone by showing them having a little pencil mustache, would I be celebrating Hitler? No, I'd be mocking them by implying they're like a tin pot dictator like Hitler, and nobody would go, wait a minute, you've shown a little mustache. Get him out. Get him out. Like, you'd understand, actually, we're using it as a point of derision. Yeah, you're right, mate.
It is satire. Like, that is, we have a name for it. And so he is engaging in satire. Now, we can argue, you could say, well, probably like, again, it's also important to reference, he's not doing the Nazi salute. He's doing the DJ thing and comparing it to a Nazi salute.
Yes,
so
exactly.
like there are actual technical layers to this. So he's not doing the Nazi salute. He is pretending to be a DJ while comparing the DJing thing to a Nazi salute. Now we can say, is it appropriate in the workplace to bring up Hitler or do this? And the answer is probably not. But this is honestly so mild in my opinion. Because like what damage is done by this? It's insulting to literally nobody.
I mean, as far as I know, isn't it like in theory, the only people who would have even heard this would be like Quickshot, whoever the other caster was, Goldborg, and some people in a control room. That's basically like a group of like 10 people. And the premise here is this is expressly off air. This is like green room shit, like stupid shit you say before you go live.
So this is a moment that, you know, he may not have even known was being recorded.
I mean, the joke is it's implied, I've heard to some people, that even Goldborg might not have known what he said in the video, and Goldborg just like uploaded it. I mean, look, it seems implausible you'd do this if you did know what he said. So I think it's actually just complete gaff on all fronts.
I think what happened is, you know, this was recorded. Quickshot maybe didn't know he was being recorded, and Goldborg posted it, I would guess, Thorin, without having listened to the audio. If I had to guess.
I think he also did delete the tweet as well. Because I remember the tweet I saw was one like that was a video of someone else watching the tweet.
Right.
So I think he also eventually realized and quickly deleted it. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So I think he just saw like Quickshot dancing around and like was like, oh, this is silly. We'll post this.
Thing to post. Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah, it's whatever. And it gives people like a look behind the scenes. So I don't think, I want to be very clear. I do not think that Goldborg did this intentionally or maliciously, or at least I would very much like to believe that. Especially because he deleted the tweets. And also,
I don't assert that he actually did it intentionally. I just do think, though, and you know this, like I'll give you the best example ever, right? So you've been in green rooms where Shox is, right? Sure. Shox herself is obviously like probably the #1 social media influencer in all of like esports. Well, I mean, I guess maybe like fucking people like Tarek might include. I don't know how they classify themselves, but she is enormous, especially for League, by the way. And obviously, one of the things she does do, Monty, like part of her job is to do all the behind the scenes content, to do like all those little TikToks and videos and get people to give her a fist bump behind the scenes and Instagram stories or whatever. If she does that, if you don't know, guys, she asks you before she puts that up. She doesn't just take a picture of your video and then go, haha, it's on the internet. She'll say like, is it okay if I did? Like, I mean, we did the same thing at Flashpoint, Monty, when Susie was there, your wife, and she was working, taking pictures. She would ask each person, like, is it okay to upload this picture? And we'd, oh yeah, don't worry about that one. Go ahead. Like, so it is, I would say it is almost like an unwritten rule in green rooms. Not only do you not leak stuff, but as a result, you always ask the person. So that's the area where you might have fucked up. Maybe he's too young and naive in that sense, because you definitely don't just put stuff online without thinking about it. That's my problem. I do agree that I don't think he did it intentionally, mate.
And
I think it was just stupidity, basically.
I also want to say that Riot themselves have actually created this like behind the scenes footage capture social media arms race, because one of the things that they tell casters, and I know this, is like, we're not increasing your rate because you don't have enough social presence. So basically they put pressure on the casters. And, you know, there's a reason why Shox does this so much, is because she's managed to develop a massive social media footprint on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. She's very good at it. And she obviously should do that as part of her career. But it has been a negotiating point that certain casters have larger social platforms than others. And that is a reason and feedback that Riot has given to casters, is that they don't have enough social media presence. So basically, Riot has encouraged them to post like exclusive behind the scenes content in order to develop more robust social media followings, because that is what casters are being told that their rates are being tied to a certain degree. So, you know, Riot is also, by the way, Thorin, I think partially responsible for this, because that is what they've been telling people. And so it's natural that people are going to do this. And, you know, frankly, it's kind of just a matter of time. The more behind the scenes stuff you put out, eventually something accidentally is going to come out.
I always thought a great point Richard made was this, right? Even though, sadly, too many new Zoomer morons are going to tell me this isn't the case because they weren't there and don't know the history of esports, right? Basically, if people don't know, it was me and Richard Lewis who basically pioneered that banter style of Counter-Strike desks, right? Before that, it was just ex-pros doing boring analysis of like, you know, map 2, they did this, they should have thrown better smokes. Like, and by the way, we don't claim to have invented it. Obviously, we himself were inspired by British pub culture, Top Gear, all the stuff everyone knows, right? But what I will say is this: when we did do that approach, then it became the meta that everyone wanted that on their desks, Monty. It's why the joke was, it was almost inevitable one day ESL would have to hire me back again, because they already had tried to hire everyone else and do like a shit version of that style. And then Richard used to even just tell them, why don't you just hire him? Like, he could just do this. So when they brought me back, right, one thing Richard always made the point of is he felt really bad about events that would like punish people who got in trouble like this, because he said it's like you're basically like giving them enough rope to hang themselves. You're telling the people, go out there, be creative, funny, push the line so that it's kind of like makes the show sexy and hot and people are excited and they're drawn in and they're excited and you have crazy gags and jokes. But if you ever cross the line by that much, you're on your own. Fuck it. Well, it's like the CIA. You know, we disavow you. You just left to the wolves. That you just be like that. That's no way to treat. Like, remember, a fucking contractor, Monty. I mean, in this case, Quickshot might have been an employee, but it's actually insane that we do treat people. Essentially, what we're saying to the people who do these events, Monty, is put your whole career and reputation on the line to make us laugh. But if you fuck up, you're on your own.
Right.
They almost baited them into oblivion there. That you just fucking tell them to risk everything.
And here's the reality of entertainment, guys. And, you know, I see a lot of comments on social media or on Reddit that were very harsh about this, thinking he should get fired, which is like, again, ridiculous. But here's the thing about being behind the scenes, and here's the thing about being in entertainment, is that when you get a bunch of people who are trying to be improvisationally funny together, right, which is what all of us casters are doing, the green room is a chance to like test jokes and see what is going too far. And I'm not like, I don't think this was, just to be clear, I don't think this was like a test. I don't think Quickshot was like, is this funny enough for me to do on the broadcast? Because like the answer is obviously not. And I think he knows that. I think anybody would know that. But there are instances of like you trying to test out jokes, and like sometimes they're like kind of, you know, edgy. And you know, you're like, ooh, can I get away with that? Or you're like testing the material, like, oh yeah, we can change it, you know, maybe a little bit to make it, you know, take a little bit of the edge off, but it's still funny. And so a lot of this stuff, if it got recorded and sent out there, I mean, would be way more offensive than this, in my opinion. I mean, Thorin.
I used to actually for real have a system. People who watch By the Numbers can attest to this. Eventually on By the Numbers, because we got sick of having to have like, if you don't know, guys, I used to just go to bed when the show ended. But Richard Lewis and Sam Bainlaw would stay up all night, like rewatching the episode, like should that stay in, should it not? Because they didn't want Richard's whole channel to get cancelled. Yeah. So famously, right? Eventually, we just designed a system where if something was too edgy, I would just on the show message it as text to Richard. And if it was legit, he would go, yeah, you can do that one. But sometimes he would go, that is really funny, but don't do that one. Because some of them, like, I'll give you an example of one without saying which one it was. I'll give you an example of one I thought was fire that didn't get on the air. One time there was a graph, and this is obviously just a joke. One time there was one of those graphs, Monty, that was supposed to show like how bad conspiracies get. You know, like at this stage, it's just a basic conspiracy, but then it's like, you know, it's like really evil to do this one. And my joke I was going to make was like, why is the chart upside down? As though like my worldview's the opposite and it's the normie that's like, well, it's just a joke. But again, if you thought it was on the graph, though, you'd just get in mad trouble if you did make that joke. So that's an example. No, I agree. You have to. You're always taking a chance, mate. Of course. Right. But the problem is, though, you have to do that because that's where the funny joke that doesn't cross the line goes up to the line. That's the problem with the nature of this humor. Yeah,
it's a problem with, I mean, stand-up comedians, obviously famous for this kind of stuff too. Like you are trying to figure out where the line is, and the only way you can kind of figure out where the line is sometimes to just test the material on people you know. And, you know, they will tell you. And, you know, we all understand what is going on in that situation. But
that's why, though, Monty, if this is an environment that you've created, like Riot wants people to do this, Monty. They know just the raw broadcast just talk about the game won't carry it, mate. They want people to be personalities and to be engaging and to get people excited and want to watch the. So if you do that, in my opinion, Monty, it's the equivalent of doing a show, like a comedy show. And if one of your guys fucks up and makes a joke, I'll tell you what you don't do is leave them on their own. You come out as a united group, as the LEC, and you say, we apologise for the potentially inappropriate and offensive statement made by Quickshot. He did not intend it. It was a gaffe that he got uploaded on the internet, but we stand by him as he is a long-time employee of ours. We know he is not that sort of a person, and he was attempting humour, which in this particular case didn't try. You do that sort of thing. You stand behind them. You know that, like, look, you don't have to say the joke was good, but you can still stand behind the person. You know what I mean? There's a distinction you can make there, in my opinion.
Right. And I think the thing with Quickshot, too, is that he himself probably would have been like, yeah, I was in bad taste and like, whatever, sorry, guys. So, you know, this could have really just been completely handled. I mean, frankly, Thorin, because it was the original tweet was deleted, I think they didn't even have to address it whatsoever. I think they just like take Quickshot out for a little bit, don't have him at Worlds, maybe don't have him at Winter, and then just like slide him back in the spring and just say nothing. Just say nothing.
If you remember, when they first started to post about him not coming, it was only even the odd Reddit comment was even referencing that tweet. Some people really just thought maybe he should take a time off, or, maybe he just wanted to have a... Yeah, it was, that could have sold. That story would have sold, I think.
Think about how many people knew about this. This is why we didn't bring it up on this show, because it was literally talking about a deleted tweet. So, like, not that many people had seen it. And so we didn't want to call, like, Streisand affect it and just, like, bring a bunch of attention to it for weird reasons.
What do you think of the conspiracy theory that this was like an excuse to just cut him and then get someone cheaper or something like that? What do you think of that? Is that plausible to you?
I think that he was like probably the last remaining full-time employee who is a caster. I mean, maybe Medic and Vedius are. Maybe they are. But he had been a full-time employee for a decade, right? And I think because he was in Germany, I think it was very difficult, unlike the American casters, to kind of get him into freelance status. Like, I think they
because of the labor laws and stuff, right?
So I think they actually couldn't, under German labor law, basically get rid of him as a full-timer and then immediately hire him back for the same job as a freelancer.
People don't know, not only is this literally what we discussed with the layoffs of LEC, but it's also the concept that, like, this is why supposedly in Germany, once you get into sort of rolling contracts, it's supposed to be really hard if you're the person who gives the contract to get the person out of it, isn't it? Like, same I've heard with like rent and stuff. Like, I've heard it's the same concept. Yeah.
So I think it was difficult to get him out of this position. And if they were trying to cut costs as it related to the massive amount of the 27 people that they fired from the LEC, that it potentially makes sense that they use this as an excuse to do so, Thorin. But I have another theory, which I think you might find interesting, which is like, I don't know this, guys. This is just my interpretation of events that I've seen. But basically, at the start of Worlds, so he was in play-ins. I think obviously he wasn't supposed to stop in play-ins, and I think basically Riot canceled the rest of his appearances throughout the groups and playoffs of Worlds, the main event of Worlds, after this happened. And I think my theory, Thorin, is that they tried to fire him at that time, but they couldn't because of German law.
Oh,
and
okay.
So I because if you actually just look at his social media over the last few months, he was like out snowboarding, saying nothing, not even addressing this issue publicly, and like on vacation, seemingly having a great time. So what I think happened is one of two things. Either they ran into some trouble with like the German government and trying to get rid of him, which kind of just like delayed this up until this point in time. Because it's like, I don't know, 5-6 months after this happened, and after he was...
So the joke I have to insert, it's obligatory, is you'd think they'd just show them the video.
But I don't think it's a fireable offense, is the thing.
No, it isn't. Of course, it's a joke. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I also think, like, he may have taken legal action against Riot and just been chilling.
He should have, yeah. Why not?
Because that would also explain why he said absolutely nothing publicly. Yes. Not even, like, really, like, yes. I'm... very little about, why, what was,
maybe that's
why
even
he was
what
gone.
He's just saying nothing now, except that he's leaving. It's all classy. Maybe they did a settlement and paid him some of his salary, and he's got to leave. I'm speculating, of course. I'm just spitballing here.
I think he got a fat bag, Thor, and that's what I think.
It's plausible, right? By the way, that also might be why the leaving message was so classy, isn't it? So, like, thank you for my $200,000. I really appreciated not having to work all this year for my $200,000. And with this $200,000 that I've got from Riot, which will endure in my heart for a long time till I've spent the $200,000, I'd just like to say I love LEC and having $200,000. Goodbye, everyone. I'm just going on a yacht now called the fucking, whatever the name of Ezreal's R is. Whatever.
Which I do think he deserves for having been an employee from this company, and like them doing him dirty like this after a decade of employment. Like, I would applaud it if this was the case, but I just think it's just odd the way that nobody said anything, and then all of a sudden he comes out with this very classy apology video, and in the meantime all we see on social media is him like big chilling in the mountains and like going on vacations. He didn't seem very upset during this time period, I will say that. Didn't seem very rattled. Didn't seem very affected in his goodbye video or his goodbye statement. And so I think he's been big chilling, Thorin, and I think probably either, there was some sort of settlement at the end of this, some sort of exit payment that was made, and I doubt we're going to see kind of any more drama affiliated with this. But if that happened, I am happy for him. Because I think he obviously deserves it. And what he didn't deserve was to have his, get absolutely destroyed by Riot for his unwavering loyalty and work at this company for the past decade over this really stupid incident that, again, was not even something that he intended or posted himself. And even though it was posted, I think was basically the least offensive, quote, offensive, unquote, piece of content you could possibly create. But by the way, and also I think what's so egregious about this, Thorin, is that he gets fired for doing this. He gets disappeared. But what happened to the executives who caused the misogynistic culture where the California state government fined them $100 million and then paid it to every woman who has ever worked at Riot during that time period? Oh, did anybody get fired for that? Nope. Did Scott Gelb, the executive who was farting on people during meetings, get fired? Scott Gelb, I know somebody who is not a Riot employee, and Scott Gelb humped their leg the first time this person met them like a dog. Not a Riot employee, just a random person that he met for the first time. This guy, after the acquisition by Tencent, and he made presumably many millions of dollars, was put on a 3-month, I believe it was 3-month, unpaid leave and then allowed to return to his position. Now, he does no longer work for Riot. He has left, but he wasn't fired. He was put on an unpaid leave after making millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars and then brought back to his role. Why were these things not punished by Riot? Riot, the company who is now very subtly getting into bed with the Saudi Arabian government, huge human rights violators. This is acceptable behavior at Riot. Systemic misogyny, acceptable behavior, not a fireable offense. Farting on people, humping their legs, not a fireable offense. Working directly with the human rights violating Saudi government, not a fireable offense. Making a NEOM deal, which caused a huge protest amongst your own employees, not a fireable offense. Making a joke, a mild joke, that is then released without your knowledge or consent, fireable. I do not understand how any employee of Riot could possibly defend Riot at this point in time, logically, with any amount of ethics, especially after the layoffs that have occurred. It's wild.
I also think as well, by the way, this is just another classic example of Riot killing the fucking golden goose. Like I told you, I'm not exaggerating. By the way, I don't blow smoke up people's asses, guys. When I told Quickshot in my tweet reply to his tweet saying he was leaving, you were the LEC. I mean it. Like, he is the spirit of what the LEC is. Like, it comes from him and what he likes and his style of what he thinks League of Legends should be and how he likes a bit of banter. Like, but it's not like quite on our level. It's like that whole thing, that whole atmosphere and ambience of the LEC is Quickshot. So to me, it's so short-sighted also to fire that guy, Monty. Like, that is the guy who, no joke, this is not an exaggeration, guy. I actually think that person is the only irreplaceable person on the whole show. Even Shocks could be replaced by a very, very good host. Look, it wouldn't be the same as Shocks, but the difference is I think Quickshot is responsible for so much of what you've done there. So the reason I also think it's mental, and sadly people won't do this, but here's what I would say right now, is I also know Quickshot, because he comes from Call of Duty, if people don't know, he actually loves esports in general. If I was another TO, you're not smart enough to figure this out, so shove it up your ass. But what I would do right now, Monty, is this. I'd do a blockbuster deal and bring him to a different game, mate. I'd bring him to CSGO, CS2, or fucking Call of Duty or something. I'd find some other game and go, you know what, fuck it. Their mistake, one man's trash is another man's treasure, mate. I'm going to take this guy and I'm going to announce, hey, Quickshot's in our fucking game now, and he's doing like a massive role, and you know what, we love fucking his humor. Obviously, we don't do the edgy part there, like, but we embrace who he is. That'd be a fucking mega win for another company if you did it right. That'll be a killer. By the way, I can tell you, we've done this with all the people like Shocks. We would love this guy in Counter-Strike. He'd be fucking sick in Counter-Strike. And his enthusiasm would immediately win him over. That's another thing people don't know, Monty. There's people who come into games and they are professionals. They can do the job. But what always gives you away is if you don't have that authentic passion for the game. Like, you know, when they did that desk during Worlds, Monty, where I did that tweet, it was that all-female desk. And the desk was Shocks, Law, was it Troubling? I can't remember who the third one was. I'm Emily Rand, and then the fourth was, I forget the name of the translator who does the translation in Korean. Do you know who that is? Who does the English language translations? I don't know the name, unfortunately. But anyway, you all know who it is, though. The person who does the translation on the English broadcast for Korean, right? So I had these 4 people. And Monty, all of those people are real League of Legends people. Shox has been a host for a billion years. Law is a journalist, French scene person, can analyse and does the role in interviewer. Obviously, Emily Rand just is like one of the best analysts in the whole world anyway. Nothing to do with being a woman. And then the interviewer knows the Korean scene and knows all the players. So I said about that desk, because it's the ultimate thing you can give as a compliment, I said the actual like passion and like enthusiasm and this desk is infectious, because these aren't 4 people where it was like someone cynically said, put 4 women on there, we'll just pretend like no, these are 4 people who live the game. Like it doesn't matter whether you think this person's like challenger on solo queue. You can just tell when all those people talk, they actually did really care about the game. They really enjoy it. They're into it like you are as a fan. So like that's an example. Like people like that, mate, are worth their weight in gold, because I can tell you, I know some really good people in esports who will tell you like, I'm burned out, I'm kind of checked out, and it comes through. It will come through. You'll get that sense of like, they're never quite. Whereas the people who really love the game, it comes off the screen. You can just feel it.
I think Quickshot also was very instrumental in caster development, because in my experience of working with,
is apparently the name of the translator. That's it. G-Sun.
That's right. G-Sun. What Quickshot has done in terms of caster development, because I can tell you from working with Quickshot that his primary goal is kind of like lifting everybody else up and making them better. And he did a lot of work with people like Vedius and Ender and these kind of guys early in their career, Kadril as well, to kind of help them understand.
Final to all these people as well, you know, it's on camera, Monty. You notice he always did that thing where he was sort of like ribbing them a little bit, but never too much. He was sort of ingratiating them into the crew.
But also, if you know the art and the craft of casting, like he is very good at working with new casters and kind of giving them layups and working around their strengths. And he's just, and he also gives great feedback, and he really cares about that. He's very selfless in that way. You know, the other person that I know in esports that I would compare to him, if you guys are familiar with many other titles, is Chris Puckett, who's another guy who very much, you know, tries to elevate the other talent very actively. And so it was always a pleasure to work with Quickshot as a result. Very genuine human being, super kind, super attentive, super present, very passionate, as you said. And, you know, he has done so much, I think, for the other casters on this broadcast in terms of training them. And, you know, that wasn't part of his job, Thorin, a lot of the time, because you run into people in entertainment who don't want to help you because they're afraid that you might take their shit. And that happens all the time. And those people suck to work with because they're super cagey. They're not team players. You actually make a worse product as a result. And if they're actually good, they really don't have anything to worry about anyway, because they found their niche and could do their own unique thing on the broadcast. But there are some people who are like that, and they're not fun. But Quickshot is definitely not one of those people. He's the complete opposite. And so it really just strains credulity that this guy would be fired after such a long time for this thing that I think is so easily handled. And it really just makes me wonder if there's just, because of all the $100 million settlement shit, if the Riot literally just implemented some insane, like, zero tolerance policy. And just because the word, even though the context of Hitler being mentioned, again, is satire, it is not any kind of, it's not very edgy. It's not.
It isn't even.
It's not edgy. It's not offensive really at all. If it is, it's just very mild in that saying the word Hitler is offensive.
That's the problem. Yes, I see. Right.
But like maybe this was something that happened in America where they saw this, and because, American overreaction, and because perhaps, they're under such close scrutiny, especially by their own employees. There was probably some sort of really stupid Slack thread about this internally where a bunch of people got outraged, even though, as we've seen, because we've gotten those leaks, we've seen the leaks courtesy of Richard Lewis of the people who are not outraged about the Saudi partnership, which is just completely fucking mind-blowing to me.
Even privately.
So I think there probably was some internal, meeting or something. Sure. And like, it probably happened in HQ in America, and HQ was probably like, we don't want to deal with this. And our employees are too mad, and they're already super mad at us because of, all of the $100 million shit. And, we were planning some layoffs anyway, Thorin. Like we were going to lay people off in a few months, no matter what. So why not just have, let's get this done early. Let's get this done early. But it is really shitty because he is one of, if not the principal architect. The only other person who's been there on LEC/EU LCS as long as he has is Shox. Yes. Shox is the last remnant. And for some of us who are at least old fans, I really like Quickshot's casting, and I fucking miss him. Like, I miss him, and I miss his presence because it felt like when he was casting and when he was there on camera, it felt like LEC. Like, it gave you that home feeling of watching the LEC, and he was a critical part of the product. So it is super bummer. And I hope somebody does pick him up, as you said, Thorin, because he certainly deserves another shot.
He deserves a pivot. And that's why I say even the game like CS or COD, mate, they would fucking he's actually, by the way, the joke in the modern days, Monty, I probably am too edgy for these broadcasts in the modern day. My kind of joke is like somewhat in the past at this point in time. Like, the joke is I would essentially, if I ever was on a CS event again, guys, have to almost like infer the joke, and then you'd know because of the Thorin brand what the joke was, but I'd have to make you say it in your head now. I can't say it out loud. The difference is Quickshot actually, for where the line is now, would almost be perfect for those games where you have to they want a bit of edge, but they don't want too much. So I think he would be amazing in CS or COD, mate. You'd be fucking sick. Great. They would love that guy as well. I think he would be very popular, in my opinion. Very popular.
So I don't know. It's nice that we're able to actually talk about this now. I wish it had been under different circumstances, but this has been something that's been floating around for a while, and his presence was missed during Worlds and at the start of this year, and will continue to be missed. And like you said, Thor, and they didn't even bother to put together like a highlight package for him on his way out or something like that. Have a moment on the broadcast. It's so fucking insulting, honestly.
No, I think it's insane, mate. Like, that's what I mean, mate. The joke of Riot is this. They don't even give you the gold watch to tell you to fuck off. They just tell you to fuck off. It's mental. Like, they don't, if you don't know, guys, the gold watch metaphor is even in the modern day, it's self-dystopian because a gold watch isn't even worth that much compared to 30 years of service. But they don't even give you the gold watch. They just give you nothing. They go, here's your fucking bus fare. Fuck off. That's it. Like, oh, cheers after 10 years in the Riot system. Because what they don't get is this, Monty. This is how you know inherently Riot are bad people. As in, their principles of life are bad. Their philosophy is bad. And so their actions, when manifest, are bad. Because they still don't even understand, Monty, that when you fuck everyone like this on the way out, and as you say, it's only the real bad guys who get the good treatment, what do you think the message for recruitment you are sending to the world is? You are telling people, don't join this company if you are a true optimist who is wide-eyed and wants the world to be better and just wants to put in hard graft and accomplish something great. Only join if you want to be in some House of Cards bullshit with backbiting and fucking people trying to stab each other all the time and trying to out each other and doing all kinds of shady shit and then fucking, like, it's outrageous. Like, what is the message? What are the incentives to join Riot at this point in time? Like, well, you just lose. You will eventually be the scapegoat at some point in time, whether financially or content-wise. In this case,
I also think it puts a chilling effect on the remaining casters because now they're going to be doubly afraid to do fucking anything.
I'm making a funny joke now, exactly, yeah.
Because it's like, oh, well, even if it wasn't your fault and you didn't even mean this for public consumption, you're just fucking fired. And it doesn't matter if you've worked here for 10 years, and it doesn't matter if you're a full-time employee, and it doesn't matter how much you've done for the product, and it doesn't matter how much you've helped other people, and it doesn't matter that you're the face of a league. Like, you just get wrecked. And so what this is going to do is, and this is how entertainment dies, guys, is when you put too many rails on an entertainment product and you try and tamp down the people, it becomes more banal, more boring, less risk-taking, more formulaic, and less fun over time. And there is always this balance, right, at entertainment between like trying to police some of the wilder takes in whatever entertainment medium you're in and trying to actually have entertaining people do what they do. And unfortunately, by firing him for something that is so mild, it really just like weights the scales super into the cautious territory. And so, you know what? We're just going to see more boring ass shit basically on the broadcast, because if this is what gets you fired for something you didn't even mean to do, imagine what could, I mean, anything could get you fired on the main broadcast, like literally anything at this point in time. Like if you know, and knowing me, you know, if let's pretend, for example, I was in the LEC right now, I would absolutely, for my own fun and for the fun of the audience, be trying to
poke fun at this. Of course.
No, but I would be trying to rile up the Carmine Corp and Mad Lions fans, Mad Lions Koi fans. Like I'd be throwing some fucking shade at French and Spanish people for sure, because it's fun. But that would just get you fired now, and now you can't actually rile people up.
This is where, like, I'll give you an example of what the atmosphere this now creates. Like you say, let's say you go on the broadcast, or you know what, fuck it, pick someone who actually could appear. Let's say they brought Dom for a week, right? They brought Dom to LEC for a week because he's in Europe, right? And let's say he comes on the broadcast and he makes a joke like, hey, Carmine Corp fans, you know, the way that the team had to surrender in that game, you're going to be waving the white flag like you guys are known to. Imagine then, right? You go away, 12 hours pass online, suddenly, like, oh, we've mobilized a group of like World War II veterans from France, and they're like very outraged at what's going on here, and they demand like, no, fucking hell, and that was
goodbye to the streaming rights.
At that point in time, you're just like, you know what? Maybe I'll just make a shit joke instead. How about I just do that and keep my millions of dollars? Like, that's what I mean. You're just going to ruin the creativity. The last thing you ever want, by the way, in that setting is, I'll describe it as clear as possible. What you want, Monty, is very clear boundaries, like this line. Like, by the way, Quickshot knows that he would never say the word Hitler on broadcast ever. He wouldn't even make a joke about that on broadcast. The difference is, by the way, on a CS broadcast, you can even make that joke potentially. But say you did this, right? The hard line would be, don't say stuff like Hitler, right? You don't ever want it to be where there's a vague line, and there's a feeling as well, Monty, that case by case, it moves. It just moves variably, and you can never predict it. Because in that case, you are going to be in your own head the whole time you're making a joke. You're going to be self-censoring, pausing, thinking, but what could be... And you're all trying to do this in a split second as well. It's actually just going to ruin the whole vibe, because you know this. Part of the secret of improv is not doing that. It's actually to just be free and just say... They even say, just say anything. Anything's better than silence. Just say something, and then we'll all play with it and have fun with it. And you can always take it back. Well, you can't take it back in this case, can you? You can't.
Yeah. No, it's a complete disaster. So, just like firing a bunch of the creative staff and the writers and the producers on LEC, this is just going to have another effect where it's going to make everything more boring, more corporate, more sanitized, and it sucks. Really sucks.
And I'll tell you the other thing that really is bad about this, Monty. I'll tell you right now, actually going on LEC when you get brought in as one of those guests for like a week and then making a really funny joke that does pop off and go out is about the best way to get on the broadcast, but it's also now apparently the best way to get off the broadcast forever. So good luck figuring that one out, you guys. You're in fucking hell, aren't you? Because you checkmate on that one, mate. On the one hand, your big pop-off is what could get you hired. Could also mean you never work again in the whole industry. So you take that gamble. Do you want to do it?
All right. Well,
we should segue this, because here's the thing. Do you have something you want to go into?
Yeah, I do actually, because sanitizing a broadcast may not be great, Thorin, but you know what is sanitizing your clothes. And we have our sponsor this week, Earthbreeze. These are great guys. They're laundry detergent sheets. Unlike buying a giant bottle, which can create a mess, obviously, or getting, a huge tub of pods, all you have to do is put this sheet in and it actually just dissolves. You just toss it right into where you put the detergent normally on your washing machine. It's very compact, very light, very easy to carry around. And I've been using them ever since we got them. They've worked great for my laundry. And not only that, they're great for sensitive skin. They're dermatologist tested, hypoallergenic, free of bleach, dyes, and parabens. You can get a fragrance-free option also, although this one smells nice, I've noticed, which is the Fresh Sense. And each of these little packages gives you up to 60 loads of laundry. So reducing waste, it's more convenient. Also, I just hate pouring detergent in general. I find it to be a giant pain in my ass. So they're lightweight and they get shipped to you. So you can sign up for a subscription at their site, and they're flexible. So they get shipped to you. They're super light. The shipping's free. And then you can just adjust your subscription cycle from there, depending on how often you do laundry. So you don't have to think about buying it again either, which is really nice. And so right now, you guys, our listeners, can receive 40% off EarthBreeze just by going to earthbreeze.com/LFN. That's earthbreeze.com/LFN to cut out single-use plastic in your laundry room and claim 40% off your subscription. earthbreeze.com/LFN. So they've been great. Been using them myself. Can attest. Get your clothes nice and clean.
And if you think that's cool, good way to support us.
Yeah, exactly. Supporting our sponsors is the best way, as we tell you guys to support us. And you guys are doing a great job of that. So appreciate you in general. Thank you very much. All right. Well, do you want to talk about, perhaps, can I interest you in some changes to the Riot competitive ecosystem or some VCS possible match fixing, and also the season is canceled?
I'll tell you what, we'll bounce around because I don't want it to be all negative. So let's actually start. Let's do like what in theory actually is potentially a positive for the scene, which is the whole thing of like the team one, the copying the Valorant model, because I actually think that's a very interesting approach. What's funny, Monty, is I actually thought there was going to be backlash. I don't know what you thought when you heard this news. I actually thought, I know, sadly, I've realised fans aren't smart enough to even put this together. I thought there would be backlash because the implication is it's become a popularity contest now. Like, if you're T1, guess what? You're going to get a lot of fucking the share. Meanwhile, if you are like Frederick Breon, you're getting fuck all. Now, here's the problem, though, Monty. Guess what? If you followed the LCS walkout, you'll understand this. I am based. I think that is good. I don't think there should be some sort of mad communist system where when T1 spends millions and millions to be number one, that they should then share the profits with like a team that didn't spend that money and didn't attempt to be number one. I think if you ask me who carries the broadcast in a Frederick Breon T1 game, it's T1. So just like, you know, a real sport or a business, they should get most of the profit, or they should get most of the revenue, right? That's what you call the A side of the card in boxing, Monty. If Floyd Mayweather fights you, you're not getting as much as Floyd Mayweather because he's Floyd Mayweather. We're tuning in to watch for. So what's funny about this topic is I actually think even though people could take sort of an anti-capitalist approach to it, I actually think this is good news, man. I like this news. It incentivizes people in the way I want them to be incentivized.
Yeah. That I think that is one of the positive.
Explain the premise, by the way, because
all right. So basically, there's downside to that too, which we'll get into.
Oh, of course.
But basically, what Riot came out with was a year ago. John Needham released his masterpiece, Building the Future of Sport at Riot Games, which included the announcement of the streaming platform and their plans to sell team-based digital goods through said streaming platform, which under a year later was then canned, and there hasn't been a substitute for that. So we can argue maybe this new economic system isn't going to be as effective as they might have thought, given that fact. But John Needham released his latest opus, which is Adjusting Our LoL Esports Strategy. What a compelling title, Thorin.
What was the future, bro? He was building the future. I was already adjusting it one year. By the way, like where there's even like the adjustment part even just have vibes of that part from like Empire Strikes Back, like pray I don't adjust the deal further. Whatever, like fucking Vader
pray I don't alter the deal any further. Yes.
That's vibe.
Which is a boss line, by the way. It's actually just one of the best lines in Star Wars.
Yes, it's great. It's fire.
And I love this. I love John Needham, dude. He's just so comical to me. But I love the line.
It's obvious, like corporate drone. That's the worst
I know,
thing,
it's
mate.
so
It's such
terrible.
a ridiculous American drone. He used all the word. He also all that fucking double speak. It's all 24/7 euphemisms. I know. I love it.
I just love how he's like, we started LoL Esports 14 years ago. Since then, we've scaled in unprecedented ways, served players and fans in every corner of the globe, launched a second major Riot esport, Valorant Champions Tour, and in turn, learned a ton about what works and, frankly, what doesn't. By the way, John, well, who the fuck are you going to be talking about this? You weren't even here for most of those 14 years. So what the fuck do you know? Like, if you had a brain and you would have come in and said, we learned about what doesn't work. You should have just gone on a rampage and just fired all those people for making those decisions when you came in, because I know factually many of these people are utter cretins. So, and they were absolutely making wrong decisions when we were all telling them that these decisions were stupid and wrong. And also, if they had known anything about the history of esports or bothered to pay attention whatsoever, they would not have made these decisions. They would not have, because they tried to reinvent the wheel a million times for literally no fucking reason. So that rant aside, really what they're doing, guys, and the reason this is happening is because the teams who are franchised have something called a team participation agreement, or TPA. Now, these documents are legal contracts that govern the relationship between Riot and the teams. And as it so happens, guys, the team participation agreements are up for renewal. And so for 2025, if they have to make changes, basically Riot had until the end of March to make changes, to propose to the teams, to try and get them to sign the team, any alterations to the team participation agreement to 2025. So basically, they had to come up with a plan before the end of March to present to the teams if they wanted to make any ecosystem changes to 2025. So that is why this is happening right now. Basically, what they're saying is, well, we used to offer revenue share to teams, right? Which was 50% of the revenue coming in, not total revenue, not profits, guys. So, Riot would spend however money that they would spend on creating the broadcast, creating MSI, creating Worlds. But those sponsorships and media rights deals, even though they were small, they would come in and the teams of every league would get 50% of that revenue. Now, the problem with this, obviously, is that it is very hard to predict from year to year how much revenue that is going to be. So if you are trying to operate a sustainable budget as a team, for example, in American sports, what happens is like the NFL will sign a, $100 billion deal over 10 years or whatever, right? For media rights. So the teams, even though they are revenue sharing, at least know what the kind of baseline money that they're going to make is. And also they control they know if their stadium's selling out, they know what their ticket prices are, they can adjust those ticket prices accordingly. So they actually can work with a budget that is known. Now, obviously this is very difficult within esports because all of a sudden you have a huge FTX sponsorship and then you don't, and you have no media rights deals, or if you do, they're very, very small. So who knows what the rev share arrangement is going to be. Now, for those of you who are not aware, what they did in Valorant was they implemented a system where instead of teams paying a franchising fee and owning a slot, Riot played Kingmaker and said, like, well, you can apply and we're going to pick you and you and you and you and you. And you're not guaranteed a spot in the league. In fact, you can fall out of the top league.
And hence the G2 Carlos thing. That's why G2 didn't get their spot, guys, because you weren't buying in for money. Riot selected who they wanted to partner with. And unfortunately for G2, obviously that exact moment in time was the worst time to ever have a pop-off. That was like the Andrew Tate shit. So it just got G2 ousted. Right. But that's why it was easy for them to do it. Yeah.
And this is off the top of my head, guys, so this could be wrong, but I think, that you can't fall out for competitive reasons, and I think they evaluate partnerships every 2 years. So they kind of take a look and they're like, are you doing a good job? If so, we will renew you for another 2 years. But if you suck, then we're going to take you out after 2 years and we'll give your partnership slot to somebody else. So what these partnership slots come with is a guaranteed stipend, right? That's over, I believe in Valorant, it's like $1.5 million, I think. So the teams basically have a competitive advantage because they're being given money by Riot. And now also we've seen Valorant has released pistol skins for the teams within the game and other digital goods. So players can go actually buy the team bundles, and then that money can go to the teams also. So that is what has been effective in Valorant. And, we agree, I think, that this system is generally better because it provides a more stable and reliable income stream because you're not tied to the revenue that, Riot's foibles as to what they are and aren't selling. And also, this eliminates the primary concern that we have, which is that nobody except for Riot actually knows how effective the marketing is in a video game. And so instead of just basically lying about it, they're saying like, yes, we are going to keep this information private, but we're going to pay you X number of dollars per year instead, which presumably, they've calculated it as, probably, I would say reasonable rate, but it's probably not reasonable, a very small percentage that is given to the teams. Because the core question of developer-run esports, as always, guys, is nobody knows what the actual revenue that is created by esports is. And there are many possibilities that Riot could use, many metrics that they could use to track this, such as for players that receive esports drops that are logged in with their Riot accounts onto lolesports.com, do these players, play League of Legends? Are these accounts active over a longer period of time? Are they more active? Do they spend more money in RP? Because if what they're discovering is that esports viewers last for many more years as players of the game, or spend a lot more money, or both within that ecosystem, well, all of a sudden we can start to assign dollar value to hardcore esports fans for Riot. But only Riot knows what these numbers are. Another one would be, okay, I see my favorite player use a skin. It's a new skin. I haven't seen that one before. Is there a sudden spike in skin sales right after this professional match occurs, or there's a notable performance? Or like Faker's skin comes out. As we know from Riot, many of their top selling skins of all time are world skins, player skins from Worlds. And they've publicly said that they are among our most selling skins of all time. And they do give revenue cuts, by the way, to the teams and to the players whose skins are created in that game.
Wasn't it also implied that even those skin sales get shared with the league, though? Wasn't it implied that T1 has to share some of the sales of their world skins with the rest of LCK or something, right?
I believe that is the case.
That's the angle, as I alluded to at the beginning, that I find weird, though, Monty, because in that scenario, it's like, what did Frederick Brion do to earn their share of a Faker's world skin? Like, think about it, guys. If LPL wins, Frederick Brion gets nothing because Frederick Brion did nothing. And if T1 wins, Frederick Brion gets some money. Why? I don't get it, mate. I don't get it.
Yeah. So basically what they're doing now is this is a proposal, because remember, the teams still have to sign this proposal. So I think one thing that's positive about this, Thorin, is that the teams have to agree to it, which I assume means is at least going to be better than the old model, because otherwise why the fuck would they agree to do this? The problem is that there are too many unknowns here to say how effective it's going to be. Basically, they say we are switching to the model where we're going to pay you a stipend instead of a rev share agreement. This is also hilariously, part of this article is literally under the heading about, where is it? It's about esports winter. It's so fucking funny. Hold on. It was like, there was a question mark about esports winter in here at some point. Let me find it. It was like,
as in there asking if it's even real.
Yeah, so it says at one of the sections, literally the title of it is "Winter is Coming," or is it?
Or is it? Or is it carrying a lot of weight right there?
And by the way, I want to start with what's working, as we believe the imminent demise of esports has been overstated. Okay, John Needham. Nobody said esports was going to die because we have the Saudis propping it the fuck up. Nobody said that. Fake. What has been happening is that sponsorships have been declining. And by the way, John Needham, if your sponsorships were doing so fucking well, then why would the teams be trying to push you towards a stipend model instead of a rev share model? This is obviously not true.
By the way, Monty, it's even so ridiculous because the fucking theme, think of the theme of the metaphor of esports winter, is it's like the seasons, which are cyclical. So when you go into winter, you hibernate because this will be the rough times when there's not going to be much resources available. So you're going to have to wait. But if you wait it out, inevitably spring will come. By his logic, if I say winter exists, Monty, I'm saying every animal and form of life will die off and there will be no future for I know it's so wacky. Is it really happening? Or it isn't, because my straw man that all of esports would end isn't true. So therefore, this is good. Like, these guys are so shameless.
John Needham, you bozo. Nobody was saying this was esports nuclear winter. We didn't say esports nuclear winter. Nobody said that at any point in time.
The irony being only cockroaches and Riot, that's redundant, would survive. It's a joke. Easy one.
So, also hilarious, Thorin, is like, they're like, is it esports winter? Fire all of our esports employees. Like, what?
I know. By the way, imagine being the person laid off by Riot like a month ago, who then goes, "Is it really esports winter though?" It's like, yes, I am homeless. It's very much esports winter. I just imagine a Riot employee on the streets. Yes, it is esports winter, Johnny. Have you got money for a coffee, please? I'll suck your dick for $5. Give me a break. Give me a break. Although obviously the joke there is when the guy goes, "I'll suck your dick for $5," then out steps that fucking guy you were talking about before. I forgot his name already. What's the name? Scott Gelb. There you go. Scott Gelb goes, "Really? Did I hear an offer?" Just out in a fucking a raincoat, like a white rain. What a world! What a world!
The only man wearing a raincoat in
Los
Angeles.
Gaslighting. I just love the gaslight. There isn't an esports winter. Esports winter.
Is coming, or is it? I mean, to be fair, they actually do address the fact that they laid off 11% of their workforce, but I just think it's so funny. We made the difficult decision to reduce our workforce by 11%. The reduction impacted all areas within Riot, including esports, and we are in the process of adjusting so we can deliver the esports you know and love, but with a focus on what moves the needle for the ecosystem at large. It's just garbage, gobbledygook.
I know.
So, I mean, I think it's just funny, though, that they're like, is esports winter coming? By the way, we think it is. That's why we slimmed down our workforce, and we're still trying to figure it the fuck out ourselves because we can't deliver the same product by cutting all these people, which is true. The product of LEC has been worse ever since they did this. The
worst thing about that is I don't have some secret power, guys. Like, when I translate these things, they're just so fucked up, the corporate speech, that like they're not even translatable in normal English anyway. Like, you have to infer what it means. So have you noticed how Riot's approach is like, hey, we here at this like marinara sauce company are announcing that we're actually going to have to use half as good ingredients, but this is an exciting and experimental new opportunity to find out exactly what it is about our sauces that our fans love so much. It's like the fucking flavor, you know what I mean? Like, they always have to spin like the negative into like some like cool positive in somewhere. Like, that's why, to me, Monty, I said it on the Four Horsemen, but every time they do this particular tone and that condescending angle, I just think of the original Spider-Man from 2002 by Sam Raimi, when J. Jonah Jameson just gaslights Peter Parker, like, no, freelance, that's the thing for you, kid, get out there and give me the pictures, then I'll pay you. Like, I just get that vibe every time. The Jonah,
J. Jonah
Quickshot.
Jameson. Like, freelance, this is for you, Quickshot.
Yes, exactly. True, they did. Yeah.
But not here. Go to that other newspaper. All right. So basically, but then also he says this line: many of the challenges I outlined last year are also still true today. We all, leagues and teams alike, are overly reliant on sponsorship as a revenue stream. Then he goes on, he says, we've got new partners like HP's Omen, HyperX, Uber, AT&T, Pagoda, and Heineken. By the way, it doesn't matter how many new sponsors you get, guys. It only matters how much fucking money you're getting. And
just tell us the dollar amount. Tell us the dollar amount.
I promise you, all of those combined are a fraction of what that FTX deal was that you lost because FTX exploded. So, it does. And by the way, I have heard from very reliable top tier sources within this industry who are doing deals with major companies right now that those deals are garbage. Not the LCS deals. I don't know the dollar amounts for those, but a lot of other people, other teams, TOs who have been signing deals that you would look at these companies, you might say, wow, that's a major international company. Those deals are shit. Those are shit. They are like cheap ass deals that people are doing because it's any money is better than no money, and it looks good optically, and they have open categories, right? So you might as well just take it, but they're not good deals. So yeah, and then they say they've extended and expanded our agreements with some of the most iconic brand partners in our portfolio: Kia, MasterCard, Mercedes-Benz, and Red Bull. Again, doesn't mean anything unless we know exactly.
Think of, dude, those are the kinds of brands that sponsor like the NBA, mate. If those deals were real, you wouldn't be letting everyone off. You'd have fucking your coffers. The exchequer would be in. It would be enormous, wouldn't it? You'd have all the money in the realm, for fuck's sake. Those are if each one of those, as you're saying, Monty. If this was like, I'll give the golden era when Cloud9 years ago was sponsored by fucking Puma when we were there, mate. That deal was. If they had that kind of deal for each of these companies, they would be rolling in it. In fact, all these teams would be loving the rev share right now. It'd be the shit, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I mean, the reason why these deals don't exist is because these companies massively overpaid previously, got very little value from deals, and then now here we are. They got burnt. Yes. So, obviously, I would say the stipend that they're offering is going to be more than the rev share arrangement is currently. Otherwise, why would anybody sign this, transformation of the deal? I also suspect, Thorin, that there are going to be fun new clauses in these team participation agreements that will allow them to later on merge CB, LOL, and LCS. I think that, part of this is there's I don't know they're going to sneak it in.
The way you're implying that they operate like Congress, where it's like you just like
they do.
Put the bill, this is the like, do you love little lovely poppies with cute eyes bill? But then it's like secretly there's all like oil shit in there, like sneak on, like, you know what I mean?
Yep.
It's that same vibe, isn't it?
I'm pretty sure, this is something that's going on, is that it will give Riot certain, because the thing about Valorant is that they get to choose the partners, right? And so they can make, Riot can make discretionary calls about how the leagues operate, how many teams are partnered, who those teams are. And it wouldn't surprise me if there's some sort of weird ass clause in here that's like, if we decide you suck, we pay you $6 million and you go away forever, right? Or $10 million and you go away forever, so that they can actually guaranteed buy out the teams, instead of them being in this clown fiesta position where they had to offer the buyout to all of the LCS teams and just see who took it, and then wait till the dust settles, and then like, do we have enough teams for a league or not? Like, it was a mess at the end of last year. And I don't blame them for not wanting to deal with that shit show again. Like, I get it. But basically, like, they talk about a lot of other stuff. Then, of course, they dangle this in front of people again, which is that they say, like, we are going to have additional digital goods that we haven't announced, which is something they've been saying for over a year now, ever since their last post, where they said, we're going to have this sweet ass streaming platform where we're going to sell digital goods directly to fans. Well, they canceled that, so they can't do that anymore. And they keep saying, like, here's the line. We'll have more to share about some exciting new digital LoL esports products in development later this year. And then this is my favorite line of the thing, Thorin. In addition to esports digital content revenue, we will contribute 50% of the other direct revenues, sponsorship, media, etc., once Riot recovers its annual investment in LoL esports, which is some hot Hollywood bullshit. If you guys know about this, this is
it's even better in context to what they used to say. They used to brag that they lost money running the fucking esport, Monty. Now they want. Now they're saying you can get a taste once I get my money back. That's mental.
Which,
That's
by the way,
mental.
earlier in this article, they said they spend hundreds of millions of dollars annually, which I believe, on LoL esports. So basically, they're saying, once we eclipse hundreds of millions of dollars of sponsorships and media rights deals, we will put 50% back in. But the thing about it is that they can...
Dude, do you remember this? This is almost like what ESL's deal was for the Pro League when we did the Flashpoint thing. It was the same wording. It was like they had to recoup their costs, then they paid you the rev, if you remember. I think it's the same concept,
But because we don't know, basically, guys, if you don't know, what Hollywood does is when an actor or a director or somebody like that gets a percentage cut of the revenue of a film, what they do is they just stuff a bunch of bullshit marketing costs in there. And because they can control how much this thing costs, they basically have no incentive to ever give anybody a dime of the 50%.
There are films where basically it'll say it grossed like 300 million. So you'll think he must have got loads, but then they'll, like you're saying, through creative Hollywood accounting, magically it'll turn out it actually lost $50, or made zero, and then you don't get your cut. I know what you mean, exactly. It's a classic trick, isn't it? Like a con game, yes.
But here's the thing. Also, like, they can adjust the cost, because here's the fact. Again, if we go back to the original point, because they know how successful the marketing exercise is. So basically they can say, well, if we increase how much we spend in esports by X percentage, the return will be Y percentage, which is greater than X. Then why wouldn't they just turn up that knob and like basically they're like, oh guys, sorry, we lost $100 million this year, but their private data about the amount of money that they're making from the marketing exercise is $200 million. So they made $100 million, but they never share that with you, and then they just lie to you, and that's it. The other thing that they say, which I think is interesting, and which is the conversation point you brought up at the start, Thorin, is that they are saying that historically, only teams who competed at international events, MSI Worlds, benefited from the digital content sales related to those events. That means that only about 20 to 30 teams could participate in digital revenue in a season. We want this revenue stream to stretch further across the Tier 1 ecosystem. To do that, we'll create a global revenue pool that aggregates digital LoL esports revenue and allocates it to teams via 3 buckets. General shares. 50% of the global revenue pool, GRP, goes into general share, which is allocated across Tier 1 teams. Competitive share. 35% of it is based on competitive performance and are split into 2 tranches, one based on regional league standings and the other based on international event placement. Okay? Fandom shares. The remaining 15% goes into fandom shares. This bucket rewards teams for developing strong fandoms for their players, leagues, and team brands. This is something that Valorant does as well. To be a partner, you have to reach like certain thresholds in terms of like social media and, marketing spends and stuff like this. So this is another thing that is coming over from Valorant. Now, the problem with this is that what goes into the global revenue pool is a mystery. It is not, let me be very clear, it is not the real data about how effective league marketing is. It is not, we have tied all of this skin revenue to esports, ergo, this is the money that's going there. Riot is never going to share that. They're never going to reveal it. For those of you who don't know, when you have an event like Worlds or MSI, oftentimes Riot releases skin lines at about those same time. And so those skin lines that are then promoted via the event, sometimes some of those discrete skins during that period then get put into these international pools, which is what they're talking about. Historically, only teams who competed at international events benefited from the digital content sales. They are talking about what they're going to do is they're going to say, we're releasing this skin line or these products, digital products at this time. And during this time period, we are tying those and you will get a percentage of that revenue. That revenue will then be divided into these different buckets and shared across the teams. But unfortunately, we don't know if this is good or not because it 100% depends on what Riot wants to do and which products they put forward. And because they are being extremely vague about what these exciting new digital products are, and because they killed the streaming platform that was supposed to deliver more revenue through selling digital products directly to fans, who the fuck knows how successful this is going to be? Because it is all discretionary from Riot which non-esports related skins they want to market using esports events, and then you have to trust them that they are giving you real data about the sales of those products.
This is not a real piece of advice. I am not someone who legally would ever give advice like this. In fact, this is just a sort of one-man impromptu theatre play in which I will pretend to be a character called Thorin and will speculate. All I'll say is this. In this I'm not a character, this is not me. What I would think would be interesting, Monty, is if I'm one of the teams at this point in time, like a giant team like a Cloud9 or a Fnatic or something, at this point in time, unironically, Riot is never going to give you the info. Like, you would be better off, for real, having some kind of mole within Riot just tell you the rough ballpark figures, and then you'd at least have a chance. Because at the moment, Monty, I have to say, I don't even buy that it's just the esports winter thing that's made this like go the way it has. Like, I get the feeling Riot's whole approach involves just constantly fucking shuffling glass beads around in their little bead game of like, but if I put this over here, and then it's like, what you're doing, it's like you're overloading people with numbers. Like, if I give you 4% of a thing which you now get 17% of, but which if you have to hit a threshold of 84%, that lowers it down to a 4% premium, at which point you get bonus. But it's like you're trying to confuse me. Like, at the end of the day, if you wanted to actually tell people, Monty, that this is a great deal, you'd just show numbers. You'd show like, this number is more. You got 1 million before, you're going to get 2.5 million now. They don't do that. Instead, like I say, they try and confuse you with like this crazy equation. And then because you don't know some of the inputs to the equation, you can never calculate even if it's right. Yep. Like, it just seems like a clever game to not ever actually pay these people their cut, you know?
Well, there's also no guarantees that they're going to release valuable digital goods. Like, if they release, 20 skins that you're sharing in revenue in, or they're releasing 3. What if those skins fucking suck? And like then therefore revenue goes down, right? It's very difficult to control this circumstance. And until there's more details about, I can't have an opinion on this because it's a fucking nothing burger as it is right now. It's all theoretical. And until we have actual information about what are these digital goods that haven't been announced yet that Riot says they're making, how many skins are they going to activate as part of this? Because they will never share the real information. And I saw some people saying like, oh, well, they'll finally disclose to the team the effect of the marketing in esports. The answer is no, they will not. They are going to just say, here's some skins. You're going to get a revenue share of these skins, and it's going to be divided into these buckets. And I agree, Thorin, to your original point that started this off. It is good that they're rewarding teams not only for competitive success, but for fan engagement, right? The problem with this is that I've talked to some people, and some of you may know that EG has no staff anymore and yet kept their partnership within Valorant because they couldn't sell it, again, because it's not something they own. They tried to like sell it to FlyQuest and Riot blocked it because it's not a sellable asset like an LCS
Essentially,
slot.
it's like me trying to sell my invitation to your birthday party to someone you don't know. It's like, well, exactly. You don't have to invite them. Like, fucking, you invited me. I know it's such a bad. By the way, I love even the concept. That's how EG thought that partnership worked. Like,
yeah,
you didn't buy it, Faith, and you idiot.
So they were trying to like ditch their slot and like get FlyQuest to pay it for them. FlyQuest obviously wanted in, but. The funny thing about this is that I have heard people theorize, and if you guys have seen EG's social media, they did this new social media push, which was like they were calling themselves like L.org.
Oh, right. You think that was a clever way to get everyone to donk on him and get the loads of engagement? Is that the premise?
I think
because we all did. We all did it, obviously.
I did it.
We were marks. It's okay.
They fired everybody, guys. They have no staff anymore.
That's even worse, Monty. I don't want to believe that they actually have some element of guile, because this implies that they came out like a wrestling heel, and everyone here in Springfield sucks, and we were all like, "Hey, boo this man!" Like we're all just wrestling marks.
So I believe this, and I had this pointed out to me, which is that because they have no budget anymore. And they have to hit certain social media quotas to maintain their partnership within Valorant, that they were actually cynically dunking on themselves to get the engagement they needed.
Do you know what's so sick, though, is this would work, Monty. Like, I'll give you an example. I'll even give it to them for free. Here's what you do next time you're in the next quarter. You got to hit your threshold again. Because there is nothing that you can actually do with EG, the org, that'll make you this impression. Here's what you do. You get a player that during the last month or so was, like, slightly ill, and then you just say some sort of public statement, like, and at EG, we, of course, really care about our players who are ill and always take care of them. Because then everyone will all just dive in, like, oh, yeah, what about that Danny guy? What about the... And then in doing so, we'll just give you all the fucking free engagement again. Like, you... Sadly, so wait, basically, Monty, here's how I will resolve this comment. Essentially, Riot has now created an environment in which if you can't actually do real things, you just do Jake Locky level fucking bait and just get every idiot to dunk on you. And then you get... This is so stupid, isn't it? I know, it's so stupid.
No, it's crazy. But I honestly believe that is probably what was going on.
It's plausible, because I did think myself, Monty, like, come on, surely anyone would see that calling yourself an L-org doesn't make sense. But sadly, that makes perfect sense now. That's a good theory. It's a good working theory, at least.
I mean, remember that EG's social media was so famously dead that Vulcan used to just reply to them and say ratio, and then like get a huge ratio on their content. So, their social media was so dead that this was actually, insanely enough, a more effective strategy.
What a world. This is some idiocracy level shit now, mate. I can't handle
it. It's terrible. But yeah, so anyway, look, people were asking me on my stream to comment about this new Riot deal. It's impossible to know until you actually know actual numbers. So my reaction to this is, I hope it's better for the teams. The stipend idea sounds probably better so they can create sustainable spends on their rosters. But until we know more about the actual digital goods sales and what's going to be included in there, I really can't have an opinion on this because it's so dependent on Riot's discretion as to which digital goods are included in this package that's going to go out to all the tier 1 teams. So I have no idea. So yeah, I'm not. It's interesting what they're doing, but it requires the teams to agree to it, and I have no clue what the specifics are. And I actually, Thor, I don't think the teams know either, which is, they can't know what the future digital goods will be or what the sales will look like. So it's hard to know if this is better or not for anybody.
We'll talk about the VCS shit then.
I guess it's time, Thorin.
Is there like a central story for this one, by the way? Because I saw there was loads of different ones. The reason why this is so insane as well, guys, is because think about like the suffering that you're under if you're a legit Vietnamese player. You just had all the fucking COVID years where you just keep playing and then you never ever get to go to Worlds or MSI. And I'll just point this out for the 1 millionth time. There was even that motherfucking MSI where they let fucking China play remotely while VCS, I think, couldn't attend or something mental. Like, that already was insane to me. But now after all that, now this cheating match fixing comes down where if it's true, like the league's just dead basically as far as we can tell. Like they've had to literally do, like no joke, that Monty, they've even pulled like the fucking Trump, like, whoa, we got to shut this whole thing down while we investigate what's going on. Like they've actually pulled the Trump. Like what is this? If it's that implies, by the way, that it's so riddled with match fixing, you can't allow even another match to be played because that will probably be fixed. Like it implies there isn't even just like one guy doing it. It's like just everyone or something. Like this is really disturbing. What the fuck?
Yeah. I think this is rough. The official announcement came out in Vietnamese on the VCS Facebook.
Yes.
So I've seen translations of it. And basically the thrust of it is this, guys. The spring split had postponed some matches to conduct an investigation into the teams participating in the VCS. After some developments, I'm reading a translation, in the current situation, we announced that all matches will be postponed from Monday, March 18th, 2024. Details are as follows. All remaining matches of the group stage will be canceled. The results of the matches on Thursday, March 14th will not be counted. VCS 2024 Spring Finals will also be postponed until further notice, and the group stage rankings will be calculated based on the results until the end of Week 7, March 10th, and this ranking will also be used to decide the teams participating in playoffs. So apparently, they've discovered some level of shenanigans that were happening on March 14th, which was last week. And now what they're saying is there are no regular season matches and that they've got to conduct an investigation and that maybe sometime in the future, the spring finals will be played. The theories that have been going around is that there has been a very bad effort amongst multiple teams potentially, and these are all rumors, guys, let me be clear, that there are multiple teams match fixing. And this doesn't mean just throwing games, guys. If you're not aware, on esports betting sites, you can do things such as bet that a game goes over 30 minutes or has a certain number of total dragons taken, right? And so there are teams and there are suspicious matches where teams probably should have won, but then they inexplicably drag the game out over 30 minutes, possibly as a result of match fixing.
It even depends how advanced the site is, Monty. Like, I can tell you in sport, this was also a scandal like 30 odd years ago in football, where like when they made what, as you're talking about, isn't just win or lose the game, which is sadly what every person always thinks of when you think of match fixing. They think it just means you intentionally threw the game when people bet on you. No, there's a thing called spot betting. Like what it became in football, the famous scandal, Monty, was you could eventually bet on stuff like whether there'd be like a throw-in or how many there'd be. And so people would just do like a throw-in at the time that they'd made the bet. Like that was the way you rigged it. But the reason that's genius, Monty, is that means you're match fixing a very small, potentially inconsequential part of the match. But then the rest of the match is real. Like maybe you do still win if you're the better team or lose if you're the worst team, but you still get to do the bet and it's way less likely you get corks. It's harder to prove that, isn't it? So that's the issue here that people might not realize is it's not as simple as, so they were in league to throw the game. So you just prove that they were like paid off by the person who profited. No, it's not as simple as that. And also I will say, by the way, there was one part in that translation I found really sinister. I want to bring it up to you to you, Monty, and see how you would read this. If you hear this information, I'll just read it to you first, then I'll give you my interpretation. You tell me if you think I'm off. So there's a part where it says, we were called up at 9:30 a.m. After arriving at the VCS studio, we were taken to the team's waiting room and had our phones confiscated to serve the investigation. Only until 5:30 p.m. did we get to be free. Right, here's my question there, Monty. Do you read that as they confiscated their phones so that people wouldn't, message other people or leak stuff? Or is it actually implied, like on some Tom Brady shit, that they're like, just give us your phone and open it? Because if the latter is true, I think that's mental, mate. Like, who the fuck is Riot Games? They're not the police, You can't just go and start fucking like some fucking mad. This is like those religious fucking purges in like England in 1500 or something. Monty, like, come on now, we will now question you, which is just like torture you till you say yes or something. What the fuck? Like, what is this? Like, what do you just take that as they took the phone off them? Do you think they were looking at? What do you take it as?
So I think that my interpretation of that is not that they were like rifling through the contents of their phone. It was that they removed the phones because the phones could be used to communicate with people off site who would be telling them how to influence the match, right? Which is like, I don't want you texting with anybody if some, organized criminal is telling you, okay, we need this match to be longer than 28 minutes. So this is what you're going to do. That's my theory. But who knows what that means, right? I mean, nothing surprises me with Riot anymore.
That's why I asked in that particular case, though, is because they specifically made it a big deal. In Counter-Strike, for example, as far as I know, Monty, I think they do take your phone off you before the game begins if you're in the actual match.
Well, they do that in League, too.
Because they don't want it to vibrate or someone send you a message or record it. Yeah, of course. Sure.
Yeah.
Just checking on that one. It seemed a bit sinister.
There are ways to cheat using phones. Like, it vibrates once if they're doing Baron or something like that, or like vibrate once for A site, vibrate twice for B site in Counter-Strike, right? So Riot does take your phones away, and all like electronics, when you do go on stage in any of their like tier 1 matches. So that's not too surprising.
And what's funny is, here's a joke. This is a joke again, just in case. Right? The joke is, people used to think Doublelift was match fixing. Because what's weird is, every time he would call a really clutch Baron, he just had a sense that they were ending the game. That's actually a straight fire joke if you know Doublelift's career. But it's all right. It's all good. Don't worry about it, guys. It's all good. You just have to know the career. It's all good. It's all good.
So anyway, this is obviously very troubling. It's in the early stage, but it's not surprising, guys. If you don't know, like, the lower leagues in China, and
it's rife. Come on.
We know from talking to a variety of betting sites, Thorin, that esports betting, especially in tier 2 in esports, is riddled with match fixing, like ridiculous amounts of match fixing.
You'll notice they'll sometimes in promos even explicitly specify they only want it done on tier 1 games for this reason. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So it is very, very prevalent, I would say. Now in kind of a tier 1 league like Vietnam, the reason why this happens, and the reason why it happened in American sports, such as like baseball, in the early 20th century, famously, like the White Sox fixed a World Series, is because the players were paid shit and because they could make more money from betting. In sports, there's like a tipping point where it's like, well, eventually they get paid well enough because the sport's big enough where the amount of money that they could make from match fixing is simply just not worth it anymore. It's not worth the risk. But I can't imagine that VCS players are paid very much. And so probably, I would guess, they are highly incentivized to match fix, especially in situations where, it doesn't seem that bad, right? Which is like, it's just game time, guys. We're not actually losing the match. We're still better. We're still going to win the game. We're just affecting the game time, right?
Yes.
And I think it makes it more palatable and justifiable for people. And I think they're probably getting paid way more than they do for their salaries in VCS. So this just comes with the territory. If players are not paid enough, this is what happens. And it's not unique to Southeast Asia. I mean, the scandals in Korean StarCraft, Brood War, and StarCraft 2 were huge. I mean, Savior in Life went to prison for match fixing, and so did other people. So we've seen this time and time again when it comes to.
I don't know. I would imagine it was probably deferred. I don't know if they ever actually went inside prison, but I know they did get like a sentence of years. True, it was probably given as probation, if I had to guess. But yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it is a felony. And no, I think they did actually go to prison for a while.
Could be true. I don't know.
So yeah, it really, I am not shocked by this news coming out. Obviously it sucks, and it especially sucks because VCS teams have been, going to international events and performing, I would say, relatively well. Not as good as the major regions, but they've had some spice and some, they've had some fun matches. So the question now is like, how do these teams even qualify for MSI? If the finals and the playoffs are just postponed indefinitely, God knows how long it's going to take to figure this out. And can they figure it out? Because if there's real organized crime here, I don't think that Riot fucking Games is going to be the company to deal with actual organized criminals in any kind of sensical way. After all, they couldn't even deal with EG in a sensical way. So why would they be dealing with Vietnamese organized, like mafia? And then how long, if they get the police involved, do the police want to touch this? Because like clearly it's probably a personal danger to police to get involved if organized criminals are involved. And if they do, how long is that going to take? Right? Do they even care? So this is going to be a very thorny process to uncover. So we'll keep an eye on it, but not much to do except wait right now and just say that it fucking sucks.
Like I say, when you add this to all the shit that region went through with all the fucking inability to attend international events, like they just can't catch a fucking break. Like you just have to like write off the last half a decade of fucking Vietnamese leagues. Bullshit. They used to be one of the best regions to potentially be able to do that one upset like they did over TL. Like you could bank on them every now and then to come with a crazy fun BO1 or something,
Not only that, but they got the short end of the stick because they were banned from the Korean server from the actions of, the bad actions of a few players. Now, all of a sudden, the rest of the professional scene isn't allowed to develop in Korean solo queue because Korean players were getting annoyed by some really shitty players. And could they have just banned those players? Absolutely. But they instead like IP blocked Vietnam. So it's pretty shitty because it feels like the hurdles for these Vietnamese players are absolutely enormous. And the Vietnamese fan base is fucking huge, guys. They also watch a ton of LCK in other regions. This is an enormously popular game in Vietnam at the moment. They have a robust competitive scene, and it just seems like the deck is completely stacked against them, which is too bad because this is a region that should be developing very quickly in terms of skill. So yeah, it's a bummer. So I think we've gotten through successfully now, Thorin, all of the crazy topics.
There's one last small thing.
Oh, okay. All right, let's go.
I just want to get your take because, mate, they're back at it again. Like, what possible reason could there be why it would make sense that Riot Games would say, by the way, our employees can't make money streaming our games? Like,
well, they used to do this.
Like at this point in time, Riot Games is like some sort of fucked up esports Michael Jackson, where they've not only cut off their nose to spite their face, now they're just having to cut off tiny slivers of skin cells because there's no nose left. They've cut off so many noses. There's nothing there. Like, holy shit. Like, at this point in time, like, why is the whole Riot Games company ethos? Beatings will continue until morale improves. I don't get it. You're a fucking billion-dollar company. You do know if you are just cool to people, they will be incredibly loyal and do really good work. What is this shit? What is this? Why do they just have to wreck their own employees? I don't get it, man.
It's really just
it's
rolling
like
back.
Shit.
It's rolling back the clock because you will remember that back in the day, Riot employees couldn't monetize any streams or YouTube, which is why the casters, who are all full-time employees at the time in the early days of Riot, didn't stream really, didn't create any shows, which also gave me a huge competitive advantage because I was the one creating Summoning Insight and doing my streams and doing my VOD reviews and everything like that. And nobody else could monetize that at the time. To the degree, guys, when they hired Crepo to be a full-time employee, he had thousands, I believe, of YouTube Twitch subs on his Twitch channel. He's a very popular streamer towards the end of his playing career. He had thousands of Twitch subs, and Riot forced him when he became a full-time employee to demonetize his Twitch stream, and he lost all of his subs. And at the time, it wasn't possible to make as much money on Twitch as it was from casting. It's not, obviously it's very different these days where you can make much more money from Twitch than you can from casting. But they did force him to do that. And, you know, eventually they changed their policy. I think at the time they were like, they hadn't like figured it out as to, okay, should our employees be able, because I think they were cool in theory with the casters doing it, but they didn't want just like random employees to start leveraging their Riot name to like, you know, then get a following on social on Twitch and being able to, you know, being incentivized to monetize their content. But the reason why I think this is happening now, Thorin, is that in particular, there is one Riot employee whose name is Mortdog. He's the lead designer of TFT.
Oh, okay. Yep. Yeah.
And he has an enormously popular stream. Like his stream numbers, you know, he's sitting like, well, not enormously, but I mean, he's a pretty sizable streamer. He's like, he gets like 5,000 concurrents on Twitch.
Pretty good.
And it's to the point where, you know, I looked into this a little bit, and he is basically on weekends. So like Friday nights, Saturdays, and Sundays, he is streaming sometimes for like 10 hours straight. And I can just tell you, if you have 5,000 concurrent viewers on Twitch, you're probably making $100,000-$200,000 a year from Twitch. Maybe not that quite that much because he only streams like 2 to 3 days a week, but it's a significant audience. And I think what Riot is concerned about is that some of these people may start, you know, obviously Mortdog, the reason why he gets this viewership is because he is the lead dev on TFT, and he's, you know, very, very famously very open, talks about a lot of the changes of, you know, with the game. But they don't want to incentivize people to basically like go home, start streaming, leverage your Riot position in order to create this audience. There are some League designers that do that too, like August, I know, who's one of the designers on League of Legends, does it. Freak obviously has his YouTube videos that he releases. I don't know if he adds, if he puts ads on them or not. I can't say off the top of my head. It's pretty easy to just not do that on YouTube though, because even if you're a YouTube partner, Thorin, you can just not put ads on videos and just choose not to make money. So it's pretty easy. But on Twitch, it's actually very difficult because, Thorin, I actually can't control on Twitch. You know, if somebody subs to me, I can't say like, well, I wasn't streaming a Riot game when they subbed, ergo this is not money, right? Sure. So basically what the effect of this policy is that Riot devs either must give up their Twitch partnerships entirely or they have to just never stream Riot games, which also seems just self-defeating because obviously, yeah, maybe you don't want Mortdog or August super distracted by Twitch or like making decisions that are benefiting themselves and their Twitch streams instead of the company potentially. But at the same time, now they just don't have any reason to stream the games that people know them for whatsoever. And it's been a primary way that people, especially in the TFT community, I know, interact with the game itself. So
am I missing something? I don't even buy the actual straw man that like these people are leveraging their brands in some like suspicious way and making money outside of it. Like, no. Like, first of all, if that was true, well, on a case-by-case basis, you could just fire those people or stop working with them or not promote them. So instead, that's why I don't buy it. Because here's the problem, Monty. I would say the opposite. I would say it sounds like this Mortdog guy is creating authentic, organic interest in your game and discussion around it that otherwise wouldn't exist during that exact same time window. That is a positive for Riot, the company. In fact, even worse, I'd go further, Monty. He is for free, as in Riot doesn't pay him, doing marketing for their game. And they're saying, well, you can't even let someone else pay you to do that marketing. It's like, what? Again, why are you cutting off your nose to spite your face? This is a good thing that he's doing this.
And people fucking love Mortdog, by the way. And the fact is now he has to decide between like, is he just going to demonetize his stream and continue to do this? Which is, you know, the question becomes, why the fuck would he ever do that? Because you're not paying him to go for 10 hours on his Saturday to go onto his stream and like do this thing that the community really, 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 really likes. You know what I mean? You know, honestly, with Mortdog, you know, and Thorin, as for your other theory, fire him. They don't want to fire him because it would be extremely bad PR for them. And he also is a really good game designer, and they need him to run TFT. They need him. He is the soul of TFT, and people are very passionate about that game. The real question is, why doesn't Mortdog just go raise some fucking venture capital and start his own fucking studio and make his own game? Because he would take a bunch of people with him, and then he could just stream as much as he fucking wants. Which is really what you're incentivizing him to do, is quit and do his own shit that will compete with you. So I agree. I do think it's short-sighted and dumb, but I do think this is why they are doing it, is they're starting to realize that there are people within Riot who are not typical casters or, you know, on-camera personalities who are now making like 6 figures on the side.
Why is it like that? They're in Riot HQ working. You're all drones. Yes, sir. This is Dplus good, what you're doing here. And the actual esports, is it even winter? It's March. How can it even be winter? And then suddenly, whoa, we got a code red. Someone is making money off a Riot game without giving us a code red. Lock it down. It's like when you're like robbing a museum, all those big fucking like portcullis type things come down. You lock everyone in the building. Like, we've got to solve this equation before we let anyone out for the evening. Like, bro, just let other people make money, for fuck's sake. They're not taking the money out of your pocket. They're just putting it in their own. Give me a fucking break.
Yeah,
why are they so greedy, Riot? They're so fucking greedy, man.
While doing, marketing and community interaction for free for you. Yes.
By the way, the kind of marketing, like I implied, you should be paying for. They're doing the dream marketing gig of getting people to organically engage with the content and get excited and want to play the game and buy shit within the game. Like, mate, if you actually sold that as a service, that would go for top dollar. That would be fucking amazing if you could pay for that. Like custom fucking ads, etc. Like, so it's mental to me that they only see the negative of this, mate. What a stupid, myopic company Riot Games is. It's so stupid.
And as far as I'm aware too, Mortdog actually gives a lot of the money that he makes on stream back to fans. He like buys RP and gives it to people.
Oh my god! Here's the thing: when you said he was giving it back, I was just waiting for you to say, and actually he gives it to like starving orphans. So now it's like starving orphans are just going to die because Riot can't handle you. I was almost expecting that to come as the kick of their money.
No. I think he does like buy things for fans and stuff who are in his stream.
Well, we all know Riot hates to give back to the fans, so that's probably the number one offense he's committed there. It's the fans who need to pay Riot, not be given things. What are you talking about? He's giving away the idea, money that you'll receive things for free. That's a dangerous heretical idea in this age. That's subversive. Yeah, he's a suppressive person.
It also, I think, creates jealousy within the company, and they may be trying to avoid some kind of legal. I think they might just be trying to avoid some kind of legal issue where there could be a claim that, somebody is like their status as a Riot employee is giving them better monetization potential or leverage compared to a different employee. I don't know the exact reasons, but it is weird that they, at first didn't allow this, then did allow it, and then are not allowing it, but only on Riot Games, so they can still stream other games, which means that they can use the following that they've built off of Riot Games to then go advertise for their competitors, which is the bonkers trade to make, I think, for Riot. Because, here's the thing, Thorin, they could literally just do a just chatting stream and answer all the questions about the game, but it's not Riot IP that's on there, so I guess technically they can monetize it, or they'll just play a different game and answer questions about TFT or League of Legends.
It's the idea that we're now trying to theory craft ways they can essentially live view to get around the core stream. Why is Riot such a clown show, mate? They're so stupid, aren't they? It's so stupid, bro.
Yeah. So there could be some arcane legal reason for this. I don't know what that would be. It could be pettiness. I don't know. It could just be people whining about why does Mortdog get to make $200,000 more a year than I do? Probably because he puts in the time and effort. I don't know, but
I know, I've never understood that. Oh, this guy, when he's not at work, works even more and does a really great job promoting the game, and he makes money unrelated to his job. That's unfair because I don't make that money in my job. What are you talking about, you moron? That's the definition of comparing apples to fucking oranges. I agree, Monty. It's such a fucking stupid angle. It's why Riot always has to do some mad angle. I think that's, like I said, I'll go back to the beginning. I think it's just a straw man, mate. There's no person who's essentially they're implying that the Riot August guy just sits in his office just pretending to work with one eye on the door, just throwing paper airplanes. Then the second he gets off work at 5:01 p.m, he turns on his stream right, guys, Time to get to work, right? Let's promote this fucking thing and make all my millions of dollars from Twitch. Like, oh, fucking give me a break.
Yeah.
Because like you say, Monty, if you spin it the other way around, you know how many game devs and TOs wish their fucking talent would go home and start promoting their stream and the fucking tournament. They would, like I said, they would pay. In Counter-Strike, if I wanted to, mate, ESL would probably pay me to promote their shit in my fucking content if I wanted to.
Yeah.
Like, they would love that shit. Valve wouldn't, obviously, but like people like fucking Ubisoft in Rainbow Six, they would it would be their dream to have you do that for free. Never. By the way, if they even heard it was for free, they'd lose their mind. We don't even have to pay you to do it. Fucking hell, yeah, of course. The idea you'd shut that down is absurd. That's why, to go back to that Four Horsemen episode a few back about the Optic lawsuit against Activision Blizzard. That's one of the reasons we want those things to come through, guys. So that then this bullshit stops. And then it's like, look, you can make demands within your company, but you can't just like use the fact you own the IP like you are God and just like, oh, like I am a capricious God. Today you cannot do that. Now you may do it. Stop. Now you may not do it. Like, I don't want to live in that world where I'm Emperor of fucking Riot. Just decide shit like that. Like, oh, it's down today. Oh, cut his head off. Like, I can't fucking do it, mate. Get Commodus the fuck out of esports. That's my new line.
Down with Commodus.
Yes. Basically, the old Blizzard was Marcus Aurelius. The new Blizzard isn't at all, by the way. He died, and in doing so, he hoped that, you know, the new Blizzard would take over, but instead in came Commodus, fucking Riot Games, and they took over esports, and they ruined the whole thing at this point in time. Now, the other joke being, Commodus also pretty abusive and toxic with women, wasn't he? Just going to put that out there. Just putting that out there, guys.
Yeah, so... I think it's weird. I don't really understand the reasoning behind it, but I do understand the trigger that caused it, which is like some of these Riot employees, you know, I think the combination of like Mort Dog, Freak, and August all having pretty big viewership on their streams and YouTube videos was probably, you know, an impetus that kicked this into high gear.
Daddy, someone else is succeeding and I'm not. Oh, it's all right. I'll just shut down them succeeding so your failure seems acceptable in comparison. Thank you, Daddy Riot. What a fucking dog shit company that is, mate.
That's just the American way these days.
It sounds like the word. Like it's like this old joke I heard, Monty. You'll be able to appreciate this
participation
if you know
medals for everyone.
There's a joke in Eastern Europe, Monty, that goes because it's supposed to explain how different their like worldview is. The joke in I think Russia or whatever goes like this, Monty. That if someone says to you, right, there's a genie and he'll grant you one wish, and the wish is this, right? Whatever you wish for, he will multiply. He'll give you 10 times whatever you wish for. And so the joke is they go, I hope my cow dies. And my neighbor, and then my neighbor gets it. So the joke is 10 of your neighbor's cows die, and it's a negative worldview. It's a worldview we can't ever have positive things. We can't all succeed together. It's the idea that like since I lose a little bit, I just hope other people lose. Like that is the worst worldview you can ever have, guys. And if people are like that inside Riot, I would just ask this: how have they fostered that corporate culture? Because that's not the culture I would want. I would want a culture where people are like open and create, and you celebrate other people's success. In fact, even worse, Monty, I would want people to look at the success of Riot and Freak and that and go, hey, maybe I could take pointers. Maybe I do have an angle. I could do my own stream, or I could have my own niche community, or I could expand what I do within the purview of how I work within Riot. That would be a cool world to live in, mate. Not this one where it's like shut everything down so everyone's equal by being at the bottom with nothing. That's fucking shit.
But here's the problem, Thorin, is that method doesn't keep you dependent on Riot for your income, which is exactly what they want. As we've talked about with the way they structure their cult and keep you just kind of chained inside of Riot the whole time. They don't want people to have exterior motivation. You know, they want you there after you're done working, still hanging out in Riot, so you never ever fucking leave, because your entire romantic life, social life, work life are all one Riot bundle, so they can keep you until the end of time. Until
you fuck around and accidentally DJ at the wrong moment, and then you're out. See, that's it. It's going forever.
Till you make a DJ joke.
I know. It's the way, mate. That's the other thing as well about Riot that I can't handle. They don't even just like, you know, quietly in a classy way remove you. They just like cast you out into like the apocalyptic wasteland, like fucking like kicking you out of the wall in Game of Thrones. I'm like, go up, off you go, just into the wasteland.
And then what they do is they make it so you can't even go back into Riot's office with your friend's permission or invitation for a year afterwards.
Oh, I love that. I can't lie. It's mainly because it was the Kaiser guy saying it that gave me the Schadenfreude. But the idea that like they literally get treated like they've like committed like some moral sin, like you can't even be allowed in the building. Like,
You have been
please,
exiled. You have been
please.
ostracized.
Oh, I love it. I love it. It's so insane, isn't it? Because it's like some religious excommunication. So it's why I'll say, put it this way. I'll again use what the Zoomers are using as their language, Monty. Riot is never beating those allegations of being a cult / Scientology while they checks notes. Run the fucking cult playbook. You keep doing it. You keep doing shit like this. It makes it look like you're a cult, for fuck's sake. And the fact that everyone comes out and goes, no, they're really not a cult. Honestly, like that just sounds like people in a cult, like scared that you're going to reveal it's a cult, you idiots. Like they're so bad at this. They're so bad. They're so bad.
Oh, man. All right. Shall we talk about some actual League of Legends?
Of course.
Here we are 2 hours into this show, and we almost got to some pretty important games of League of Legends that are either happening in playoffs or on the way to playoffs. So many of you probably skipped to this section right now because you don't care about all the crazy shit that goes on that Riot won't talk about. But we do, and for those of you who enjoyed it, we're glad you're here. Where do you want to start with all of this? You want to start with some garbage LCS matches? You want to start with the return of LEC?
As much as there was garbage matches, I'll tell you what, I actually did enjoy the Jensen performance in the FlyQuest Team Liquid series, Monty. That was fucking fun. Bro, I'll tell you what, this guy's longevity is fucking pretty impressive. He had a couple of games there that were bangers. That Ari game was a fucking fire.
I mean, I am slightly concerned, I will say, about his viable champion pool at the current point in time. And also, I mean, if we're talking about mid laners who are doing well, like Quid obviously deserves a lot of props for his performance late in the split as well as in the playoffs so far, because he is 1 billion%, bailing 100 Thieves out when they are just truly not a very good team.
Oh, they're frauds. They are frauds.
I mean, also FlyQuest, like, why the fuck was this game so close? Team Liquid is such a giga fraudulent team.
Yes.
At this juncture, it was, these games were clown fiestas, and everybody's like, oh, this was such an exciting series. I think by the way, Thorin, it had 50 more kills.
I wish I knew who said this, but someone tried to imply this was like one of the best series they'd ever seen or something. I wish I knew who it was. Someone tried to imply that. It was killing me, mate. I couldn't handle it.
But so I think this series had 50 more kills than the next best of 5 in LCS history. So it was very bloody, and it was very, I would say, exciting, but maybe not for the right reasons. And it certainly doesn't instill a lot of faith in FlyQuest that Team Liquid was able to push them to the brink like this. I will say, to Team Liquid's credit, Impact is performing like a monster right now. Their macro sense is still what is propelling them forward. And I have been a Yun hater. To Yun's credit, he actually has done well during playoffs. This has been a much better performance from him.
Here's the question then, Monty. Is it the Annie pick that's making you think Jensen has nothing left in the bottom of the barrel?
I mean, look.
What you're worried about?
So we are seeing Annie as an Ari counter pick around the world right now. I had to watch like 3 games of Showmaker on it versus Gen.G. But at the same time, like Jensen on like Annie, Karma, Orianna, him playing a more supportive role, like, I get it. You're playing with Inspired. Inspired is a carry jungler. He's going to be great if you play a more supportive mid laner, especially if he's on like Viego, right, in the jungle and can carry some of these games. But it is, I think Jensen's versatility is a bit in question right now. And like, I am scared for FlyQuest because their bottom lane is relatively unreliable.
It's actually a bit sauce at the moment, isn't it? It's fucking sauce.
I mean, it was sauce all season, and I think Masu and Busio, remember, they're young players, and Masu in particular will get better, but the flippiness of this bot lane does just straight up lose them games. And if not for Inspired basically having an MVP level performance this split, they don't get anywhere near as far as they get and like end the league in first place. But for this team to be in first place and to be played by like to the brink by Team Liquid, who is massively fraudulent, by the way, APA's champion pool is complete shit.
I know.
Like, to the degree, guys, that You know, this is a team that is opting into these double dragon compositions. Aurelion Sol and Smolder on the same comp have no map agency. There is literally nothing can do in terms of securing objectives, ganks, fucking anything. Like, it is the worst situation. It's the worst feeling as a jungler to be in these games where you can't skirmish at all. You can't rely on any pressure from these lanes. You can't actually contest any objectives because there's just two flying turds, one in mid and one in bot lane, that you can't do anything with. And you're just praying, like Team Liquid is doing the LCS thing where they're like, well, guys, if we just scale long enough, eventually the other team will throw into us and we'll just win the game. And you know what? They fucking do. And it's disgusting. But
they almost won this series. That's the craziest part, is it? That last game was forever, mate. It was like 1,000,000 years long.
Yeah. And also, you know, the Ziggs is coming out again, and like APA is good at this champion, but surely we should just be able to beat a non-meta Ziggs. Right? Surely we should be able to do something here. We should be able to take ownership over other parts of the map. But no, apparently APA is just fucking unbeatable on this champion for reasons that only exist in North America.
You would think logically, the second you even see them doing a comp that could be the Ziggs, you would have like the aggressive counter draft that just fucks you, classic Korean style. But they don't do that somehow in the LCS. It's weird. They just let him do it. I don't get it.
He's 5-1 on Ziggs so far this spring.
Right, someone call up Chovy, because obviously Chovy doesn't know how mid lane's played. He needs to know that Ziggs is like unbeatable, apparently. Like, give me a fucking break. This is mental, innit? What a dog shit league.
Well, again, it's just about playing passively, and Ziggs, you know, the problem with Ziggs, and we can go back to like the Easy Hoon days of playing Ziggs, is that his kit is incredibly toxic.
It's and by that wave clear bullshit, isn't it?
It's basically just stall out the game until the end of time, and then throw an ult
on the lane, etc. Then they can never push you in. Yeah, exactly.
Or just use an ult on a team fight in the late game, and it does a gazillion damage. But like, he's a very binary champion, and he's pretty shit in team fights, honestly. And you should be able to fucking kill him. You should be able to kill him. He's not hard to kill. Like, yeah, he's got satchel charge, but like, come on, guys, can we flank properly, please? He shouldn't be just throwing bouncing bombs into the middle of a team fight forever. He's pretty vulnerable. So I mean, I just hate seeing some of these picks. I hate the fact that you know, we have Team Liquid who overperformed, I think, relative to their roster, and a lot of that was like Cloud9 shitting the bed, and NRG shitting the bed. But I mean, it's egregious that they are able just to run the league like this. And like, I have to watch these Dignitas games where they're running double dragon comp and just like magically winning at 30 minutes into the game because Dignitas completely griefs the entire game state from the start. So, you know, Yun just gets giga fed on Smolder. You know, we have massive, I think, underperformances by XU in these games. Dignitas just not even playing to their win conditions. It felt like Dignitas like was just mentally done. Like, they were just like, time to leave, guys. We're out of playoffs. I'm just blown away.
Here's what's so gross. If everyone remembers, at the beginning of the LCS split, there was a very interesting discussion of like, actually LCS was looking like it might be better than LEC this split for real. Like, LEC was looking really dreadful out the gate. Everyone was thinking like in the winter, like, oh, maybe actually LCS win it because this is actually not bad. Here's what's so insane, Monty. Think about these following two statements. The first one sounds depressing, Monty, because the first statement goes, literally, the battle for third place in the LCS is between 100 Thieves and Team Liquid. So already you lose hope, don't you? Oh, fuck. No, there's a worse one, and you should know it's an obvious joke where it's going. The battle for first place is FlyQuest and fucking Cloud9. Like, boys, you know that discussion we had on the past weeks of like, if you put G2 into a tournament now, G2's got nobody in the LCS is even top 30 in the world. I don't even fucking care. Nobody in the LCS is top 30 in the world. It's these like because the joke is, look how little it took from Cloud9 to again become like a contender. They literally just flip the switch and they're just there again. This is how fraudulent this league is, mate. It's bad. Just bad.
It's super fraudulent. And we knew that 100 Thieves ending in second place was a very fraudulent result, because you see the strategies that they have, and you also see the number of throws that they do in the mid game. Sure, Quid probably, you know, maybe Quid is the MVP of LCS. I think you could make it. I think Inspired is personally. But I think Quid is definitely in the MVP conversation. He's in the like first team All Pro. I also think JoJo deserves to be there over Quid, but that's my take. But I think you could make arguments for Quid being like first team all pro. So he's had a very good season. He's had a very good playoffs. But the problem with 100 Thieves is like they I was watching this fucking Cloud9 series on my stream, and I'm like, does Sniper just think he's Zeus or something? He's just gonna blind pick Aatrox into fucking everything. And you know what? He just dies. Like, he doesn't have that performance. Like, remember, this kid is a rookie and he's in his first playoff match. And yeah, he's done well on stage, but playoffs mentally are a different game. And he looked like he just shit himself on stage during these games because he was not performing well. Fudge was absolutely dumpstering him. They were blind picking for him and then getting him into like a TF matchup where he was just getting schooled because of the range differential. And like the rest of his team isn't really doing anything to help him out. And so he actually he ends the entire series with 1 kill. 3 games. He gets 1 kill. He's 1-12-4. 1 kill, 12 deaths, 4 assists. For this guy who is a star and a stud for this team. And I still think he's a great player and he's got a lot of potential. But they were massively exposed in this series versus Cloud9. And sure, Berserker was playing a lot better in this series than he had during the regular season. Fudge was playing a lot better than he had during the regular season. They actually seem to have, as a team, significantly better coordination than they did in the regular season. But this level of glow up was ridiculous when you consider 100 Thieves should have been able to put up some level, at least of a fight early.
Oh, mate, here's the other thing about this exact result, that series, Cloud9 100 Thieves, is it really does just mean for next split, who the fuck's going to actually care about regular split? If you're Cloud9, It doesn't matter. As long as you make playoffs, you can do this again. You can just wait and then turn it on the playoffs. And these other teams, they will get worse while you can actually get better. That's how bad it is. Because the sad thing, that's the other problem with having rookies, is sometimes they fall apart in the playoffs. By the way, just to be obnoxious, because it is my style, I'll just throw this out there. You remember all those people after Worlds who were going, see, NRG showed that's why you don't import. You just invest in NA talent. How's your NRG today, dickhead? They are fucking bad. That team's actually bad. Like, I hoped they would be good. Look, I liked how they played at Worlds, but I'll tell you what, whatever it was, either that was a flash in the pan or firing the coaching staff didn't help. Whatever it is, that energy isn't here anymore, boys. The one that's here now is more like what those names used to look like all right players that maybe could win a few games. Like, it isn't some world-class team, guys. Come on.
The joke I made on Twitter was that the real NRG was the positional coaches the whole time, because that was the thing that CLG was doing, which was like hiring one coach for every player. And when NRG came in, they canned all the coaches, and now we have a team that is no longer performing well. And I don't think that Ignar was the reason this team was fucking beating G2.
Also, if people don't know, I believe they actually, when they won the title, NRG, just like a lot of actually LCLs last few years, had that Edward Cleland guy, the Mindbody esports guy, hired as like the performance. But I don't think they ever use him anymore, mate. I think it's one of those ones where they're like, we won, so who needs him? Just like EG did, and then you never win again. That's a thing too. Some people just use these guys, win once, and then I think the cost is too much, so they just let them go and get some fucking rando in.
Yeah, and like Palafox was playing very badly. I think in the 100 Thieves series, he was getting dunked on by Quid. I think even the drafts that we saw from NRG were mostly acceptable or like winning drafts. They had some creative ideas. Like, I liked the GP that they were playing into like Veigar, Senna, Seraphine, especially with the Jax matchup in the top sides. Good lane matchup for GP, and I think he matches well into the composition. This is the only reason this game even went to 5 games is because Contracts pulled a miracle steal in game 4. And it's like,
Contracts actually even had some good players, mate. He was trying his fucking hardest in this one. He was trying to carry the corpse and fucking Palafox over the line. It looked like, it was mental. He was on some US Army, like No Man Left Behind, just dragging the corpse with him to take to his mother or something. Fucking hell, mate.
But like this team at the end of the day just like wasn't good enough. And, it's not like this is an LCS that is rife with talent right now. If anything, especially the bot lanes have been incredibly weak this split. It is literally hard to identify who should be first team All-Pro among AD carries and support players within this league. because there hasn't been really any kind of standout performances because Berserker was pretty underwhelming until he got to playoffs. So if we're just counting, regular season performances, like FlyQuest bot lane was really like literally the reason they didn't win more games than they did. They were, they're rookies. It's fine. Like, I think Masu's very mechanically talented. They will get there.
Looks like he has a future, mate.
But like, if we literally have to talk about Tactical as a top 380 carry in this league, like something's fucked up. Tactical hasn't gotten significantly better. There just isn't really, and like surely
it's insane how bad ADC is as a position, mate. Like
Berserker
is doing so much heavy lifting on that position, it's mental.
Like surely FBI and Huhi, a legacy partnership in bot lane,
champions
should be cleaning up. But apparently NRG just gets eliminated, goes to the losers bracket and then gets eliminated by a very like sus 100 Thieves roster with virtually, who gets caught out all the time in the mid and late game. It's bad. It's bad.
It's almost like Parla Fox isn't secretly like fucking NA caps. He's just an above average player who in his meta and on the right times can be good. He's not some like god tier player, guys. Like I was impressed with some of the moves he made at Worlds and in that summer split, but like as an actual player, it doesn't check out that he's as good as people made out. That's why that whole angle is just copium of like, stop importing players. Doublelift was right in that one regard. Importing players is the only way you make teams world class, you idiots. You can't really just go, I believe in you, Parla Fox. Here's another contract. And then he just plays like Chovy. It doesn't happen, mate. It doesn't happen. Whereas the difference is, I made this point before, Monty, even though people might not like them when they were initially like choking and doing bad in those first splits, there's a reason why people like the Quid guy, I told you, even when he was a meme last year, I'd heard from a whole bunch of EU coaches like, hey, we were really seriously considering this guy. We think he's like a fucking like real talent. Like he's got real potential and he could be someone really good. And so even though everyone memed on him last year, like, this is why you don't import. It's like, actually, as you see from the split, Monty, this is why you do import. And by the way, that's exactly who you import is no-name Koreans who are secretly sick. That's who you import.
And by the way, I don't think anybody's upset with Quid or Castle's performance in this split of LCS. Yeah, they looked like genuinely good. I think a lot of people will put Quid as like, put him up as an MVP candidate or outright vote him for MVP of this league. I think his individual performance has been very, very solid. Not as good as Inspired.
You said earlier, I did want to ask you about this because I saw this video that's on Reddit, actually, where they have the LCS pros and coaches say who they think the best jungler is. And they actually, no joke, mate, they sort of agree it's River. In the end, they say River in the LCS. The reason why I can't understand that, Monty, is I wanted to bring this up with you. I actually always got why years ago, it's also because I think you maybe talked to him, but I know why years ago LS was really early on the Inspired train. Because, bro, if you like Korean-style jungling, Inspired is your man. This is the Western jungler that does that style, guys. Like, haven't you noticed how in the game, because people always complain, mate, in a way that tilts me off the face of this earth. You know, they'll always talk about Inspired and be like, but where's the first bloods and the gags? Like, his game is control, you fucking idiots. What I love about Inspired is this. It looks to me like he always knows what he is doing. It looks to me like he has scouted the opponent, like he understands where they're going to path. Like in the game, he's actually weighing up decisions. He's not just like randomly playing solo queue like, I feel like going top now. Like this guy to me, look, I understand in Rogue they never quite made it over the line and won the championship, but that's why that was the worst narrative ever in League went like this, Monty. It's either Inspired or Larson was the fraud. They're both mega players. They just didn't, by the way, it's not even that they didn't work. They just didn't win. They still worked. Inspired is a mega fucking player in my opinion. I'm a massive fan of this guy's game. I just love watching it. Even in losses, I'll see him be like, logically, that made sense when he was going for it. I could see how he played from this position. I think he's a really smart player, mate. I love him.
In my opinion, no other jungler could have gotten FlyQuest this many wins because of the crises that are present every single game, seemingly, either in bot lane or in top lane. Like, think about the level of variance that Inspired has to deal with, where he doesn't know whether his dumbass rookie bot lane is going to all in at level 2 and then just lose the entire game potentially, or he has to go do massive triage on a bot lane state, or like Bwipo just fucking flips it because he's Bwipo, and then all of a sudden there's some wacky scenario in top lane. Now, I think River has been good, but objectively, River is dealing with a top 2 mid laner within this league, and a top laner who literally just solo kills and gets advantages on his own, which makes the jungle state a lot easier to play. I think just the weird game states that Inspired has had to deal with this split are reason alone. You know, him pulling out these wins is crazy in some of these games because he is actually able to adjust on the fly to strange circumstances really well. Now, if River was some sort of shot calling god that was putting 100 Thieves into incredible macro positions in the late game, that might be one thing, but 100 Thieves has garbage macro in the late game, so you're not even getting that. I think Inspired is definitely the best jungler in this league. River is good, though.
Oh, of course, yeah.
And Bwitbo has been like very flippy in some of these games, and he's got his weird Bwitbo picks too. So on top of that, you're dealing with, you know, potential lane scenarios that you may not even fully understand even as a professional jungler. So yeah, I didn't leave these best of fives in LCS feeling very good about these LCS playoffs. Like, people were over the moon because of the excitement of FlyQuest versus TL and 100 Thieves versus NRG, but these were some trash ass matches, man. Like,
the only thing to look forward to is this, Monty. At least we will get this. In the upper bracket final, at least we do know that people like Jojo and Jensen will trash talk. At least there'll be some spice. It'll be fun. It'll be entertaining.
I appreciate APA's trash talking as well. At least he's trying something. Like, I find his personality to be very entertaining, even if, I mean, the difference between his gameplay and his personality is pretty ridiculous because he literally just wants to stand under a tower and farm in game, but he wants to talk shit in all chat. I guess he has a lot of time while he's just in the shadow of the turret waiting for the next minion wave to get there to just start using his hands. I also think it's funny because like the other pro players like comment on it, so it's clearly getting under their skin, which is like, that's part of trash talking in sports or esports, which is like,
that's one thing I can't handle, bro.
You just get a mental edge on people.
Think about the game I'm from, Monty. In the game I'm in, people will do shit like stand up when you lose a round to them in Counter-Strike and just shout to you like, hey, bitch, online, you done won that, you fucking loser. And you have to just tank that, mate. You can hear them. You can't even mute them. You can hear them shout it to you. You have to just take that and just hope it doesn't affect your mental. And by the way, if that does affect your mental, bad news for you. Get out the kitchen if you can't stand the heat. That's Counter-Strike. In League, it's true. They're all like, literally, this is Jizuke all over again, mate. Like, I have to mute him because in Worlds he's typing naughty things to me. It's like, will you fucking grow up? You get paid like $200,000, you idiots. What are you talking about? Mate, they're so soft, it's insane in the LCS. It's so soft. Like, that's supposed to be fun. You're supposed to either mute him or get into it. Get into it, mate. Because I used to love it when people like Jizuki were just typing. That's my favourite shit. Kill the other team. I love it. I love it. Back in the day, if you don't know Counter-Strike, they even used to do that to the top pros, like Taz, like a Polish guy from Virtus Pro. He would just shout when they would play 1.6 to like Get Right. Like, if he killed Get Right in the game, Monty, he would just shout like, hey, Get Right, is your mouse working? And like, Get Right just has to go like, ignore him. I hear nothing. Like, let's get back in the round. Like, meanwhile, they're just like, he typed something in the game. Oh, fucking, half of you can't even read. Why are you worried? Don't worry about it.
So my takeaway, Thorin, after watching these first four best of series is that Cloud9 wins this league again. Now that Berserker has awoken from his, winter torpor, and he is unleashing his bear fury on the bottom lane again. It's going to be hard for FlyQuest to win. I think it's going to be very hard because this Cloud9 looks a lot better than the one that we saw in the regular season.
I also do despise that, like, think about this, Monty. Think about where Cloud9 was at the beginning of this spring split. Bro, releasing fucking Smolder is like you just want them to win the league. And what are you doing? Like, they already have the best ADC. You've just given him the fucking unbeatable. Well, the joke is that at the moment, right now, the only people who can beat Smolder are bad coaches drafting him for their team with the worst comps ever. Aside from that, it just wins, mate. And the West, at least. In the West, it's in, like when he got dropped in LEC for that week, mate, it was a nightmare. It was just fucking run over everything, except if you were complete shit. Like, it's just so bonkers how this one champion has dominated the league. It's mental, innit? It's so gross to watch as well. It's just disgusting.
I mean, credit to Cloud9. They actually did in their first game versus 100 Thieves beat Smolder by just running Senna into it and scaling ridiculously and just putting pressure onto the back line with Lee Sin and especially Twisted Fate from Fudge. So they did a good job. And there have been ways that we've seen teams like try and deal with Smolder either by
I mean,
scaling.
like the Asian teams can do it. It's just like the Western teams seem to just fucking.
Except Kwangdong Freaks can absolutely not do it, as we have learned, where they just give up Smolder and then lose to Breon and DRX. So some teams are better at it than others.
Listen, I needed to get that Teddy win, so that Teddy win made it all. Now, what the hell? Now I like Smolder. What the hell?
I love Teddy winning with Smolder.
Exactly. Listen, a win's a win.
But I hate this champion. I'm glad they're gutting it. It's a piece of shit. It is a piece of shit champion. It makes the game so boring because he is just a flying turd for the first like 21 minutes of the game, and then he just turns into God. And it's so boring because basically, Thorin, what you're trying to do with Smolder is buy yourself like 5 extra minutes. Like, worst case scenario, he gets like all of his stacks. He gets 225 stacks at like 20 minutes into the game.
Yes.
Best case scenario, it's like 25 minutes. And so even if you dive him 1 gazillion times and you don't trade with him in lane and you don't let him farm, it's like, oh, is it 26 minutes into this game yet? Well, I guess he has the stacks anyway, so get fucked us unless we have a 10,000 plus gold lead. Or very, very good ways to kill him in the backline. And so it has made it very boring. And many of the scaling options that we've seen be picked into him, frequently Senna isn't available, but Senna, Zeri, Jinx, they have not been as effective as Smolder itself.
You mean it's that meme where there's the woman in the swimming baths with the kids, Monty, and she's holding up, and this is like, LCK and LPL able to deal with Smolder. Then there's the kid who's like struggling to drown. That's like LEC. And then the dead body underwater is just LCS. Like they can't deal with it at all. So just dead.
Smolder is, I think, doing very well in LPL also. LCK has been a little rougher. Let me just. It was
just never the ADC league. Let's be real. The LCK was always the one where you had the counters, and you got top players.
I'm just gonna check real quick what the Smolder rates are in LPL right now.
There's definitely some massive big ones. Like, obviously, some people have had some mega carry games. There's some of the best ADCs in the world.
I guess he only has a 53% win rate. He's 43. He is 23 and 20. In
That's reasonable.
LPL.
That's more than reasonable. Yeah.
Let me check on LCK.
What is he in LCS? Let me have a look at LCS.
Hold on. Let me get LCK first while we're doing this. LCK, he is 44%, so he's 14 and 18. So actually has a losing record, but it's a lot of the bottom teams have been playing him. And then when I check LCS,
oh, he's actually not got that. He's only got like a slight winning record in the LCS, believe it or not. He's like 2-2 in the playoffs and 6-5 in the regular split. It looks like something like that.
He's 8-7, overall. So 53%. So same as LPL.
Shout out to 100 Thieves and other teams for making it look balanced. So well done.
Yeah. But I think it just feels bad because the thing about Smolder being in a game, Thorin, is like nothing happens in that lane, right, for the first 20 minutes, and then the game just ends one way or another. So it's not fun to watch. He's not a fun champion. He makes game states very boring.
Indeed.
But yeah, LCS I think has been pretty underwhelming. It feels doomed that we're just going to get Cloud9 lifting the trophy again. I think the hope for the league was that Cloud9 continued to underperform, but they seem to have snapped together in terms of both teamwork and individual performance. So it's been a lot better. But this is honestly, like, I don't think fans should just despair because it's much more exciting for MSI if Cloud9 looks good going into MSI. If we got look, imagine if we got this fucking FlyQuest versus TL or FlyQuest for 100 Thieves in the finals. MSI would be doomed for NA because
the one good thing is at least the rosters of FlyQuest and Cloud have some players you want to see play internationally. It'll be cool if those two teams go. Yeah.
Well, FlyQuest going is going to be great for their development, but I am warning you guys, if FlyQuest goes, Masu and Busio are going to be put into the grave by international teams. Like, they cannot get away with these mistakes when they face some of the best bot lanes in the world. Like Elk and On, you're not surviving that. Like, you're not surviving Guma and Keria in their current state. And the thing is, the teams are so good. By the way, the nightmare matchup is BLG or T1 for FlyQuest because both of these teams play extremely hard through the bot lane. And they're the best at snowballing game states through the bot lane because that's when Owner and Jun like go into the jungle and fuck all your shit up. That's when Faker's like suddenly in your lane diving you under your turret. So if you start to lose bot to either of those teams, they will just drive the dagger in. And that is a punishment unlike anything that they have encountered in LCS so far. It will be ugly, but it'll probably be a good learning experience for them. I guess. But it's, you know, I hope FlyQuest goes, but I have much more hope for Cloud9 at international events than I do for FlyQuest, at least at present.
Girl.
Any other reasons you want to talk about? The fall of T1?
Oh, we should definitely discuss that. Yeah. Remember, this is our, let me just set the stage for you. I've done the whole thing when Gen.G beat T1 of like, essentially T1 stands already in shambles, aren't they? Like, remember, if they don't win this split, your beloved super team will have won 1 out of like fucking 5 splits or something mental like that. Like, it'll be insane at this point in time. So it's worse than that though, Monty, because the whole narrative of this split of the LCK up to that result until T1 lost went like this. What makes LCK a bit boring is that it's just got tiers. Tier 1 is Gen.G and T1, and they can only beat each other. Tier 2 is Hanwha, KT, and Dplus, and Hanwha's probably the best, but those teams can't beat the top 2 teams. And then you just, after that, you have the next tier, which can sort of upset the second tier, and then you have the bottom that are terrible, right? The problem with that one is Hanwha Life just fucking beat T1, guys. Like, Hanwha, the one that's supposed to be the worst version of Gen.G that we're all calling frauds, they just straight up beat T1. Like, that's fucking embarrassing. Like, if you're T1, the amount of copium that you must be on if you're a fan now must be insane, because right now, like, fucking hell, you're in trouble right now. This is looking really dire, mate. That was fucking bad. And this is after when Gen.G only just beat them the other week with that fucking game where T1 got 0 kills. Like, what's this last 2 weeks been like? Fucking hell.
So I think there are a few factors here, Thorin, and we saw them in this series. How I just said they like to play through bot lane. When T1 got Kalista and Nico into the bot lane and they got kills early and they got pressure and Owner could start the invades, that's when they looked very good in game number 2. I think game number 1, I was loving the R5 Poppy pick, obviously because I love watching Peanut play Poppy. But because I thought it was an extremely good pick into, clearly like the Kalista that they had here, and also to a lesser degree, like Poppy is still can be good into Lee Sin. It's not like a counter pick, but it's still it's.
Mate, do you know how much it broke my heart to see Owner's Lee Sin even fucking fail? Bro, we're supposed to believe this is his time to be on top now. He's supposed to have gotten over all those, but fucking hell.
Owner played terribly. Owner played terribly in games 1 and 3 of this series.
Champion, guys. Yeah. His signature champion is to pick Lee Sin and carry.
Yeah, last year, guys, we were wondering if Owner would hit a 90% win rate on Lee Sin, and he looked amazing. And in this series, like, Peanut just put him in the dumpster. And so there are a few things I really liked about this Thorn. First off is that when Peanut is in his groove, he is fucking amazing to watch. And as somebody who loves watching really good Peanut jungling games, because he's so smart, his pathing is so good, he's so intelligent about playing the game state, that game 1, I was over the moon. I got to see the Peanut Poppy masterclass, and I fucking love it when I see these games. But also,
his problem, Monty, is he has the same problem Chovy does. The people who don't watch him play in the regular season look at Worlds and go, lol, did he choke? That he was never good. But what they don't ask is, why is he in position to be at a Worlds and choke? Because he's amazing in the regular season. Like, there's a reason this guy's won the MVP a bunch of times. He's a fucking sick player, guys.
Yeah, why is he the first seed from Korea at these international events? You know, for the last 3 international events, the last 2 Worlds and the last MSI, it was Gen.G who is the first seed from Korea. And the reason is a lot of it's because of Peanut. And we also got to see some of the pitfalls of T1, such as like, oh boy, here we go, blind picking Aatrox again. Well, Doran actually has been historically a Jace player, and here comes the Jace.
Love it.
And they've been doing a lot. I mean, Zeus is the highest blind pick top laner in the league, and overwhelmingly those blind picks have been Aatrox, and he has been able to do things with it. I also think potentially that, the bot lane getting a lot of bans against them has made it so they're not necessarily, like, they got Kalista 2 games here, but then in game 3, Thorin, they give up the Smolder, and T1 fucking sucks at playing Zeri. They have always been bad at playing Zeri.
It was always the classic one that he wasn't very good on. Guma was never even when Zeri was the absolute OP causing pentas, he was never the Zeri player. Never, guys.
No, it was Ruler, it was Pays, it was Aiming, it was these players that were all the very top tier Korean Zeri players that he was facing off against, and he was famously very weak. It's not just that he is bad at playing Zeri, which he is, guys. Like, literally go watch this game 3, and he will be queuing backwards a lot of the time. It must be something with the way he controls his characters within League of Legends, because he is constantly like flicking his mouse behind his character, and it's causing him to like queue backwards a lot of the time. So I think maybe his mechanical style is not very well suited to playing a very different kind of AD carry like Zeri is. But also T1 is just bad at playing with Zeri in general. Like, as a team, they're bad at playing with Zeri. As a team, they are bad at playing with picks that they can't necessarily get a lot of kills with. And of course, you know, it's not just scaling picks, because Guma is very famously a really good Xayah player. He's a really good Jinx player. Caitlyn. Caitlyn has, but you know, the thing about Jinx though is that you actually have kill and pick pressure early because of Zap and because of Jinx ult, and also he was typically playing Jinx with Nautilus or Thresh, right, with Keria, and they were able to pick up kills and they were able to set him up for success. T1's like pick compositions that they use, and T1's very good at using globals. Zeri doesn't have that, and you know, he looks mechanically weird on Zeri. And he doesn't, and the team itself doesn't really vibe with the Zeri pick. So it has been a little bit sad to watch. And it's definitely not the way you want to go out in game 3 of this series. Where,
by the way, mate, this game 3 is the game you want to watch. If you're a T1 fan, you are already a Smolder hater, because the way, like in game 3, even when the fight looked like you were winning and you're chasing them down, all that Smolder had to do was turn around, and it was like, who's chasing it? Yeah, exactly. And they fucked you up every time. By the way, I already love Viper, but he fucking smashed this fucking game, mate. Well, they would just body these cunts.
I mean, the thing about it, Thorin, is when you're playing Smolder, you either have to scale, which is they're trying to do with Zeri, or you have to have a champion that has threat onto Smolder. But you have a Lee Sin and an Ahri, so maybe you can get a flank onto Smolder. Unfortunately, they're playing Maokai, Alistair, Taliyah, so they can shut down a lot of your flanks very easily. You come in for a flank, here comes Alistair W, he just headbutts you out. Here's Maokai, Twisted Advance, or Maokai just ults and disengages. Maybe you can't flank because there's Taliyah has her E down and you can't Ahri ult in, right? So it's hard, or like you get walled off, right? Your team gets bisected by Taliyah wall, and then all of a sudden the Smolder's just the Jace and the Smolder just free firing onto you. So I don't think there was a lot of threat onto Viper, but also Viper did disgusting Smolder things and ends the game like 10-0-6.
And by the way, I'm with you on the Zeus storyline as well, because this is where, Monty, you can't just look at a Gamepedia Champions page, because the Champions page would tell you Zeus is unbeatable on Aatrox. Yeah, but first of all, like, he's not playing it into Jace, though, is he? Like, that point is, Doran actually did low-key, like, sort of like fucking neutralize him. Like, actually, he made that matchup look like suddenly Zeus isn't like the best top player in the world, blah, 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 blah. And also, you notice another thing I have to say as well, Monty, is, to be fair, if I connect this to how Worlds went, well, I'll tell you what, Zeus looked like the best player in the world when they used to fucking give him counter play every game and play to him, and they didn't just play to bot lane all the time. When now they've gone back to, like, you're just a top laner, it's not to look at the best player in the world anymore. So it's not like he's a bad player, but it just shows you how T1's, like, under the premise of what they're doing in the game is their strength, mate. It's not, they don't just have an all-star team of players, guys. Like, people really did want to act like everyone except Fake is like the absolute best in the world at their role. Like, not even vaguely close for me. It's the way they fit together is what makes T1 good. That's why this sucks, because this isn't the T1 you enjoy watching, Monty. This is like this is underwhelming, their understanding the win conditions in some of these games.
Well, I mean, here's an example for you, Thorin. Out of their last 11 games, Zeus has played Aatrox in 9 of them. And otherwise he played Jace and Tristana, both of which he lost with. And then he's 14-2 on Aatrox this split, and he hadn't lost on Aatrox until this series. Which, I mean, of course, if it's working, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I get that. But after game 1, I don't think like you go for round 2 on the blind pick Aatrox into Jace, unless you're going to ban the Jace. And, they did ban the Jace in game number 2 of this series. But now T1 is like, on red side, maybe they think they can counterpick, but they don't. And, honestly, Thorin, when I was reviewing this VOD on my stream, they saved ADC until R5. So I thought it was going to be a Jinx pick for Guma. And I was just yelling at my screen, like, pick Jinx, pick Jinx, pick Jinx, pick Jinx. Like, this is something that you will be good at and that will scale into the Smolder. And they just picked Zeri. And I'm like, why? You guys can't. Like, did you learn something? You guys tried to play a million Zeri games before. You were in the Zeri meta. And you couldn't fucking play this champion. It's the same group of players. Why would anything have changed about you guys playing Zeri? Except Zeri's just weaker now. So it's worse, objectively, than it was previously. And you couldn't do it then, so why can you do it now? They can't do it now. Also,
I'm just going to throw this out there. If I told you in a series against T1, Zika only plays Ari and Talia, does he beat Faker and T1? Everyone's going to go, of course, right? He's the fucking two-trick. Tell you what was going on there, boys? Where's old Faker at? What's going on? This is worrying.
So Zeka, to Zeka's credit, Zeka has been a bad Talia player. He had a very good Talia game in game number 3.
Killed it, yeah.
He was great.
He killed it, man.
So there is a difference, I think. Zeka has been a long-time Ahri player, so that's not too much of a surprise. It has been one of his better champions. The real surprise...
The problem is, everyone's got to stop doing this. Is he a two-trick or not? If he is a two-trick, you can't then add extra champions. So I'm with you, mate. His problem is, like, look, he always played this, if you don't know. He actually used to play it in DRX even. The difference is, though, we just didn't think of him as a top player. That's the issue, is like, which is it? Is he just a good player, in which case you should beat him anyway? Or is he just exceptionally good on only champions? I think he's just a good player with like, a couple of exceptional champions. You know?
I mean, we know what his good champion pool is, and his good champion pool is Akali, Sylas, Ahri, Yone, Tristana. That's basically his good champion pool.
It's even implied to me in this team that he's sort of being a bit sacrificial with the picks sometimes, Monty. He's not trying to force it. Like we've discussed it in the past episode, they've had a bunch of angles this split where they could have forced an Akali, or sometimes the Akali might even have been the good pick, but it seems like actually he does, in my opinion, in this team, they do play for Viper, mate. They look like they do set him up, like they know he's the mega carry, and if you can get him on his right comp, then you're going to fucking win the game, you know?
Yeah.
And they're right, by the way. He is fucking mega. He's cracked.
Yeah, Viper's been extremely good. Look, I was happy to see Zeka have a decent Talia game. It was his first Talia win. He's tried it 3 times. This is the first time he's actually won a game with it. And not only did he win a game, but he looked really good while doing it. Was this a one-off aberration? Probably. But he did win with something that we would not traditionally associate with being a good Zeka pick.
Oh, the worst thing is on one hand, the part of me that's just a legit purist who loves esports, Monty, knows, of course, I want T1 to still come second and go to MSI for MSI to be better and the storylines to be better. And you want the winning world champs there. There's a lot of reasons, but that part of me now is going to have that fucking stupid hope that maybe Hanwha can beat them in a best of 5. Like, but what if? Just for that one day of salt from the T1 fans, just sending trucks, everything. Oh, be amazing.
The T1 fans should actually be nervous because this loss put them out of reach of getting first place. And the reason why first place is important is that they skip around to play. The first 2 seeds skip around to playoffs. But the thing about it is that the drop off from 3 to 4, 5, considering that KT and Dplus look like shit. People will be like, "Oh, Dplus did so well against Gen.G." Look, Lucid had a much better series, but like that was not a great series. And also Dplus has no shot calling in the mid and late game. They are going to die in a best of 5 to a good team. And Gen.G will absolutely smash them. I mean, Hanwha will absolutely smash. Hanwha's macro is actually underrated, but Peanut still mind controls this team, and it's still good, at least domestically. But the difference is like once the first seed really matters because first seed is going to select opponents among the winners of the first round of playoffs. And that means you don't pick Hanwha, which means that T1 gets Hanwha and T1 just lost to Hanwha. So it is rather scary, even though that is a double elimination portion. So you're not dead if you lose that first round. but it certainly should be making T1 fans somewhat nervous. I still think T1's the better team, by the way, and I still think they will win in the playoffs.
They will. They will. Come on.
Like, I think that the last couple of weeks with Gen.G and Hanwha have exposed kind of T1's drafting a little bit, and they need to like tinker with some of these compositions. I also think Azir being out of the meta hurts Faker. Not that it doesn't hurt Chovy, because Chovy has been an enormously successful Azir player as well. But look, I think that this is not necessarily the comfort zone for T1, and the way that they were winning for most of the split was through immense bottom pressure. And now there are a bunch of ADC bans. And I think also Smolder fucks up the meta, because now it's like a scaling war in the bot side. And that is not something that T1 wants to do. They want to just murder you and win through bot with double Hail of Blades 80 carries. And even if you do that to Smolder, he still somehow nukes your entire team at 25 minutes. So it has warped the meta pretty significantly. And because I believe that LCK Playoffs will be on 14.6, which is the Smolder nerf patch, I don't think that's going to be a factor for the playoffs.
Right. The other thing I'll throw up there as well is, remember, guys, there's only 1 week left, and Gen.G's opponents are DRX and fucking Breon, right? Yeah. Guys, they're already 30-5 in games won. Like, Gen.G is going to complete one of the most dominant splits ever. And quite frankly, as of right now, if we track the trajectory, that storyline I mentioned earlier isn't just a meme. T1 is going to lose another split with this lineup. Gen.G should win this split. Everything suggests they're going to win this and go to MSI as well. By the way, I can't wait for it, because them against BLG is the dream. But we've also been waiting 1 million fucking years for Knight versus Chovy in the best of it. Can I please have it before I die, please? Surely this is the one. This is the one where we get it. I'm sure of it, Monty. I'm so sure this time. I'm so sure this time. And also, similarly, once one of them wins, I'm so sure that one of them's finally winning Worlds. This, not 2019, not 2020, not 2020. This 2024. There you go. Starting now.
This is the one where Chovy actually has a decent international performance, and also Keen. Yes. There were reasons to be worried about Gen.G.
True.
Both solo lanes not historically epic at international events. Which sucks.
Obviously, the joke itself is just right there, isn't it? If you think about all the last few splits, like, the problem is, like, what did they even change? Well, obviously, it's League of Legends, isn't it? On KT, he was the man and the MVP. He had fucking KT Roast, the first place. He must be a wizard. Now he comes back to Gen.G. They're dominant again. Oh, you know what, Legends? I said before, I don't know what you do. You just win, bro. That's what you just win. Well, until Worlds, and then you do nothing. Whatever. Don't worry about that.
I will say this, at least, Thorin. Historically, 0 Gen.G players have been big international performers, but now they have Canyon. So they got one now. Maybe Canyon could just carry the ever-loving shit out of this team at an international tournament. Crazier things have happened. But I love the way Gen.G...
for the playoffs, though. Playoffs is so... It's just around the corner, guys. A couple of weeks. I can't wait. It's going to be a banger.
I mean, Owner cannot play that way into Canyon and think he's going to have any level of success. I mean, Peanut bopped him in games 1 and 3 of this series. Canyon's Rel also was extremely good in the head-to-head between T1 and Gen.G. And Owner was egregiously bad in some of these games. They played against Hanwha like unacceptably shit. So they've got some working out to do, but T1 has been known to adapt pretty fast with this roster in the past. I don't think it's going to be enough for them to win. And also, I think the story should be, Thorin, like, this Gen.G team that swapped out 3 of its members and had to undergo an entire new shot calling system is now just on this incredibly dominant run where they beat T1 in both of the best of 3s in the regular season. And yes, they lost that really embarrassing series to KT, but I mean, they were going to lose one, probably. It's very hard to go undefeated throughout the whole split. They just lost to maybe a team that we would not have expected them to lose to.
Still the 4th best team in the league.
Yeah. I mean, they are bad, but sure. They weren't Breon, they weren't Breon. Yeah, but I think people are getting hyped up about Dplus, and I just have to quash that. Like, this Dplus team is a macro disaster, and the meltdowns that they have in the late game on the map are just really pathetic. So until they fix the shot calling, somebody was saying in my chat today. This is where I go for rumors right now. People were saying in my Twitch chat that there are rumors that Tarzan might join Dplus for summer.
That would be spicy.
Well, I mean, it does kind of suck because Lucid's probably coming off his best series that he played against Gen.G. But the problem is, like, if Tarzan can shot call, that's the main thing this team needs. And Lucid will find another. Yeah, Lucid will find another jungling position, so I'm not too worried about him.
And by the way,
this team needs a fucking voice in comms.
I even think that's totally plausible because I actually realized, Monty, we all missed that one, right? When we were doing all the comparison points for Milky Way in the LPL, actually Tarzan's not a bad one because here's the thing. Look, no one else is going to be like Milky Way because no one else is going to have as bad teammates. Like Tarzan did have Chovy and fucking Viper.
The hens.
If you go and look at Tarzan's first year on Griffin, he also was a contender for best jungler in the world. He was really, really strong. Yeah. And just like this is the thing. The problem people have is they think the Milky Way guy's just using his hands. Dude, it's his decision making that's so crazy.
He's shot calling too,
his understanding of when to go in and when to go out and when to group and fight is fucking insane. That's also what Tarzan's like when he's at his peak for me. Like he is another amazing guy who can just control when you do things. Like you say, the macro concepts are always there in all his teams. The sad thing people don't realize is it's just again another one where you're just looking at the fairly internationally. If you look domestically, these guys are studs. So mate, that would make me so excited. Even though I actually think the Lucid guy, I understand why they promoted him. He has potential. He's got talent. But the question is, it's like that whole Kaiser for Trimby thing in the LEC. The point is, Trimby brings himself out intangibles like shot calling, hence why Heretics is way better, even though they don't have perks now. So similarly, I actually do think if you could bring Tarzan and Dplus, it'd get fucking interesting all of a sudden. I'd be interested in how this. So why can't they compete for third spot at that point in time? They're on the table.
Yeah.
They've got a couple of good players.
I mean, Showmaker's having a very good split, right? So I do think...
Oh, they would pair up well, I guarantee it.
Yeah, I do think that it's really just the voice that is needed within this team and the direction in the mid and late game. And, LNG was looking like an incredibly solid macro team last year when Tarzan was on. I don't know if it was Tarzan that was doing it, but probably it was some combination of Scout and Tarzan, considering they were the focal points of the team.
Yep. And you just look at them without him, mate, and they just have none of those qualities anymore.
Yeah, they're terrible right now. And their macro went to shit. And also, I mean, everything went to shit. Their engages went to shit. They're obviously the mid-jungle synergy, which is the thing you would think would go to shit first, also went to shit.
Here's how you know it has to be Tarzan to some degree, Monty. Because when everyone remembers that LNG versus T1 series and everyone said Tarzan choked, they had nothing. They had no agency at all in the whole series. It was like they were doing nothing because the player who's the fucking jungler who does all, he had nothing. He was just doing nothing in the game. So I actually think, sadly, people don't understand. You don't want to dismiss a player like Tarzan or Chovy or Peanut. What you want to ask is this. It's the other way around. You want to get more interested. It's a mystery. Like, how can someone be so good and yet have moments where they fail? How can someone be the one who leads the meta in a way, but then suddenly they can't perform in a big moment? That's actually, to me, I don't take that and dismiss the guy. I get more interested. I'm sort of like, hey, I want to unravel this. What is going on there? Will he ever overcome it? By the way, the cool thing is if people like that ever do overcome it, they've got all the skill set to just be the best. They can just be the best. Like the famous example is Device in Counter-Strike. The guy used to be considered a choker, and then by the end he won the most majors of anyone ever because he became the clutch player once he got over it because his game was so fantastic. That was the one thing dragging him down, and when he removed that, nothing could stop him. So same thing with people like Tarzan. If you're writing him off like, who wants to see him play again? Me. Because, mate, if he ever gets it together, it'll be fucking amazing, yeah. That guy's a real talent. He's very good jungler, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, he's been great for years in LPL now. And, look, I want to see him back. It does kind of... It feels bad because, like, you want to see Lucid and younger talent grow.
Yeah,
but, I mean, what this team needs right now is strong in-game leadership, and, like, Lucid's just not that guy. So the roster isn't working.
The real problem, Monty, is this: we do want him back in the LCK, but we don't want him on Dplus. We want him on KT Roster. Yeah, you heard me, bitch. Get the fuck out, PureShik.
I want PureShik out more than anybody.
Listen, PureShik also doesn't have to leave the LCK. There's a spot for him on Breon. That might be too harsh even for PureShik. You know what, PureShik, fair play.
What are you talking about? PureShik was on some of the most dog shit rosters remember, he was on the even worse versions of DRX in the past. He was like DRX ride or die, man. There were times where he was like the only human being on his team, the only one with a pulse. So yeah. He waited long enough for them to assemble some mediocre teammates around him that patch their way into a world's win. But But yeah, I mean, I think and people will complain because Pyosik does have the pop-off games, but it's always like that shit, man. You remember the pop-off games, but you don't remember the fucking grief games that he has.
Yes.
So I prefer more consistent players personally.
Yeah, of course. Well, the joke is, I would put it like this. The problem with Pyosik is he always pops off. The question is it for your team or for the other? You get the joke anyway. It's all good. It's all good, boys. It's all good.
Yeah, you want to talk about LEC a little bit? I haven't fully caught up on LEC yet. I've got some more VODs to watch tomorrow, but I can talk about it a little bit. I can talk, for instance, Thorin, about the fucking... I was watching today a game that I wish I had never seen, which is SK versus Carmine Corp.
Oh, it's garbage, wasn't it? Just absolute trash, man.
Which is, by the way, I don't know if you've seen some of the reaction cams for Swiffer, the coach for SK, but it is literally some of the fucking funniest content in League of Legends history.
Oh, you meant for this game? I've seen the past ones. Yeah, it is.
No. This one is epic.
All right.
He's literally he literally. I'm gonna try and do it right now. He's literally just sitting there like this, watching this game. And you can just see the 1,000-yard stare and his like soul dying, and like the camera's just like zooming in on him. This game was so fucking funny because, especially from a coaching perspective, like SK has an extremely easy to execute composition, and they get an enormous lead. And somehow they just keep ignoring the fact that they could just go get Dragon Soul and that they can fight a front-to-back team fight. Because remember, they have EXITS, who's on lethal tempo on hit Varus, and no one can kill him. If you watch the team fights where SK actually fights front-to-back, they do the smart thing. They build Irrelevant as a tank Renekton. He's built Titanic, Randuin's, and Jack-Show. So it's an unusual Renekton build, but that's just because his job is to stand in the front line and create interference. Meanwhile, EXITS should just be free hitting onto Cabochard and you watch him when they do this. Literally, EXITS doesn't even move sometimes. He's literally just standing there right-clicking somebody and just full autoing just into them. And he doesn't have to dodge anything. And yet,
this game should literally have been over like 15 minutes earlier, right? They could have just forced a fight and just won the whole game easy.
Yeah. But basically, they kept like dying one by one, not going and getting soul, like fucking up like map control into soul. Irrelevant, like, who has been very good for SK this year, like randomly going into the backline by himself. Like this game, like Niski flashing into them for literally no fucking reason and like missing all of his skill shots. Like this game is fucking comedy, Thorin. And like the end of this game is
trust issues with SK Gaming, because on the one hand, Monty, they sometimes look like the team, if it understands it, can be clean as fuck. They can actually be like, it looks like a contender, but then even within a game they've won, remember, they win this game at the end. They, like you say, they just gift chance after chance after chance to fucking shitty Carmine Corp. Like, bro, how can I have any faith in SK Gaming? Come on.
Dude, they literally give up Dragon Soul, Hextech Soul, and then they give up Baron, and they somehow still win this game because Carmine Corp is so fucking bad that they can't stand behind a Scion while sieging inhib turrets. And so so basically Niski is able to free fire onto Seiken in the back line and get a kill. And he kills Upset too, and Upset doesn't flash. Like, it is... Or he doesn't ult, rather, I should say. It is fucking ridiculous the way that this game ends with a Hextech Soul and a Baron onto Carmine Corp, and then they just run it down into the inhib turrets, or into the Nexus turrets, and then they just lose the game. It is wild. But realistically, Thorin, like, the depressing thing about this for SK is, like, they have a very strong lead. They have a very strong win condition. They have literally the easiest fucking team fight in the entirety of League of Legends to execute, which is just front-to-back team fighting. Just fucking all stand together. Just stand together and do it. And they somehow can't do it. And they do an interview with Swiffer after the game. That is so funny.
What did he say?
Because he says it in the most... I would say, diplomatic way possible, which is like we keep getting in our own way. Like we get advantages, and instead of playing the game out properly, we get in our own way. I'm like, this guy is just trying not to use Australian words right now.
Yes.
I feel terrible for him because this is the torture of being a League of Legends coach. Is It's like, okay, guys, surely I taught you what to do in this situation. This is so easy. And then you just watch them throw it over and over and over and over and over again. But yeah, it is bad. And like Karmine Corp isn't even playing well. Like they are playing terribly also. And yet you give up all the objectives and you give up all the team fights.
No, it's actually fucking gross. I mean, that's the worst thing. I'd complain if they did this against a top team like Fnatic or something. Karmine Corp is just there for the taking. What are you waiting for? This is fucking disturbing. Because Karmine Corp is fucking bad too, mate. Like, I actually did tell people this would happen. They'll win some games. Obviously, they can't be as bad as last split. But I'll tell you what, mate, that team still isn't good. Like, most of the problems still exist. Like, the Seiken guy,
no,
I said it on Twitter.
Seiken is very bad.
Because I saw him in the RLs a couple of years ago, he used to actually be pretty good in the RL. So I thought, you know what, he deserves another chance. Mate, he is just a fraud. He's not done like a split in half. He's just a fraud in the LEC. He's just a bad player. Like here's the problem, Monty. I can actually, you know what? As much as I don't like the tacticals of the world, I can handle like a misplay that loses than just not making plays. I can't handle the people who refuse to make plays. Like, get the fuck out the team then, mate, because there are so many ERL mid laners would probably like have won a bunch of games if they were in Karmine Corp by now. Like, this is gross. The guy does nothing.
I mean, the best thing that happened about the Azir global ban, Thorin, is that I don't have to watch Seiken play it anymore because he just doesn't do anything on this champion. Like, he actually just doesn't do anything. But you know what was funny is like watching this guy versus Mad Lions Koi, because I mean, I got to see like the fucking Frescoey Seiken matchup was like such a terrible mid lane matchup.
Karmine Corp, the shitter Karmine Corp that fired their coach when they had like 2 wins, beating the Mad Lions that those fans really believed was the second best team in Europe, is like the most fucking like the fucking Schadenfreude orgasm that I had over that was fucking mental. Because, Monty, and you know this, it's not just Mad Lions losing, it's how bad Karmine Corp are, and you're losing to that. That is the fucking toppermost Keck of all time from the Keck Valley, which is why it's allowed to be called Keck. There you go.
The Frescoey performance on Nico this game was also just horrendous.
Who knew this guy was a fraud? What, you mean those random playoff series weren't his whole career? Fucking hell. This guy's not even that good, mate. Come on.
Dude, among the highlights of this game.
I told everyone, the thing about this team that's weird is I think 3 of the players are actually potentially very good. I think 2 of them are just below standard. Mid and AD just aren't that good, boys. They just aren't that good on this team. And you're seeing it now, finally. They get exposed.
All right, this game in a nutshell that Mad Lions Koi played is why you don't want Frescoey or Supa on this roster. So Frescoey spent the entire game, like I think in the first 21 minutes, he had hit 1 person with a Nico ult because he kept missing the Nico ult or like getting chunked out before he could actually fight. So he was literally just doing nothing on Nico.
You must have the same experience. It's so jarring because now that Nico's been played a shit ton, and especially at the end of last year, all the best mid laners played it. I'm so used to the Pop Blossom always getting 3 people. Yes. Bro, in my brain, I can't even comprehend it can miss. Like, it actually looks, this is where great players actually trick you. When you watch people like Knight, you just think it's easy to land those every time, don't you? This guy shows you an 8, mate.
If you want to see my full commentary, first off, it is worth, I think, going and watching the VOD of me reviewing Karmine Corp versus SK, because it's fucking hilarious if you haven't seen that game yet. But go watch the one where I do Karmine Corp versus Mad Lions too, because there's shit that's happening in this game. Like Frescoey is literally like rocket belting into walls, so he can't get the proper distance, and then like can't flash in to engage effectively. Like he is, and then Supa hilariously in this game is dying on Sivir because he thinks he's gonna cancel like a recall with Boomerang Blade on Upset, and Upset just kills him. It's so bad. It's so shit. This whole game was so shit. And Karmine Corp again, like it's not that they did anything I think particularly well, but the effort of Mad Lions Koi was just so uniquely terrible, and they played their champions so badly that Karmine Corp just kind of got a free win here, even though it wasn't that they were doing anything particularly amazing themselves.
Like, there's only one bit of positive news right now, this split, Monty, if you're a fan of Mad Lions. And here's how it goes. Rogue and Giant X are in the league. So that's the only good news for you.
What are you talking about? Rogue beat Karmine Corp.
If those teams were in the league, Monty, there's a world where Mad Lions goes from finals to don't even make it into the playoffs.
Well, they were fraudulent finalists anyway. They were finalists by circumstance.
I'll give them credit. They were like, look, I never really thought they were second, but I would have said they were like a top 5 team. Let's say they were like 4th or 5th, Monty. I could give them that last split. They did have some parts that were good. The real reason this is very sad is this. You know how everyone loved to crow last split about how it's obvious they'll be good because they've got the pre-existing synergy and they're all coming up together. Yeah, but the other side of that narrative is that will eventually wear off. And then whenever the teams all get their synergy going and get good and you don't actually have the top players, by the way, spoiler, mid and AD are pretty important in European League of Legends. They're the 2 carry positions. Spoiler, you can't win games. Because you know what's sad is, it's not like they're shit the whole game long, Monty. A lot of these Mad Lions games, they actually can sometimes get an early lead. They can get kills onto people, but they can't get to the point at the end of the last split. When they got to the late game, they would close the game. They don't even do that now. Their mid game now just kills them dead, mate. It's just over. Yeah. It's an underwhelming team. I'm sorry, it just is.
Yeah, I mean, El Yoyo is still very good. I think Mirwin and Alvaro have also had good performances, but yeah, you know, they got lucky with like Adam getting benched and like pulling off a pretty big upset win versus Fnatic in the playoffs in order to make it to finals, and the stars really had to align for that. And it's just not happening this time around. Fnatic's playing a lot better. They are coming off a win against G2, which was. I mean, G2 did pick Smolder Tom Kench, which is maybe the most passive lane you could possibly pick. And Yike, I think, you know, he had a very good early game, followed by Razork completely shitting on him. And Razork is looking amazing right now. And
he's a stud.
Finally, Thorin, we may actually be seeing the Razork humanoid synergy start to like kindle a very small flame that we've been waiting for literally years to happen at this point in time. And Noah also, I mean, it was an impressive game on many fronts. Like Noah tries out this Kai'Sa build with like a lot of burst potential. I know LS apparently has been advocating for the Kai'Sa build that he did, which is like Muramana Luden's Crypt Bloom.
It's definitely interested into the Smolder. That's quite. That looks like it could be used again. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you can assassinate him in the back line and just absolutely just nuke him. And you go like a death cap 4th, right? So it is an interesting build, and I think it is like compelling into Smolder play, and it worked very well. But also, I mean, there was just no agency on the map here outside of some early game pressure from Lee Sin. So I think Yike started well, but Razork just like monstered this game. Razork is just such a fucking good Poppy player, dude. I love watching this guy play Poppy, just like Peanut. And
Razork, unironically, is like for this year so far, it's like contender for best LEC player. He's just really fucking good, mate. Like he gets better year on year, in my opinion. He's just really good. He's really good now.
Yeah, he's great. I think he's just unquestionably like the best jungler right now.
He has to do it as well, mate. Like he's not working with like an all-star team like Yike is. He has to put out some fires himself, mate. He's doing some inspired shit too. You know.
And this was I don't read too much into this. Like G2 picked the most passive bot lane possible. They got dumpstered. They got dove. They got punished. It's okay. Caps kind of had a bad game. Broken Blade had a fucking terrible Gwen game. Even though that is ostensibly a counter matchup, particularly into Nerf Cassante. But I want to give credit to Oscarinen too, because he got some all-ins that I didn't know were like possible. Like he was killing the Gwen at like pretty high HP, and diving her under her turret in order to like Cassante ult her out of it, which I thought was it was good. Like it was fun to watch. But the Broken Blade Gwen game was massively bad, and Yike kind of fell off a cliff after that early pressure. So look, it's best of ones. G2 will bounce back. It was unlikely G2 is going to be undefeated in best of one round robin play, right, guys? It's very difficult to do that when you're playing 3 games a week. So I'm not terribly worried about G2 or anything. They're still very good. But yeah, other than that, I guess Vitality is interesting. Vitality has been, I mean, I think we're seeing kind of the effect of Mac on the coaching staff at this point. Like, they've had a much better split than most people would have expected. Daglas has looked better, which is pretty huge. Hillisang still kind of running it down.
Yeah, but the joke is, Vitality last split probably would have won some of those games, but he just so egregiously hinted that for real, it's like they really did just tell him, just don't die. And if he just dies less, they win the game. It actually feels like that in a mad way, you know. He's limiting them that much.
I mean, I literally was watching him play that Fnatic game today, and Hillisang literally just walks into mid lane to auto a turret twice and gets picked off and killed. And I'm like, what the fuck are you even doing? Like, Hillisang, you are playing Nautilus. You getting 2 autos on a turret is not going to turn this game around, buddy. Like, what the fuck are you doing? You're a support player. Get your shit together. And I was sad, too, because Vitality introduced some really interesting tech in this game, Thorin. And somebody on my stream, I think, rightfully pointed out that this is probably a result of the pre-recorded draft. Because they come into this game facing double Hail of Blades, Ashe Varus, which is like, you know, an SK, like a T1 special. And then they come in with exhaust on both Kalista and Nautilus, and then they just all in them at level 1 and actually win, which is very weird. But with, you know, double exhaust and exhausting Noah on the Varus twice, they're able to actually just barely pull it off. So this is probably something that they discussed after having seen the draft already and made a specific plan for, but it was very creative. Unfortunately, the Olaf is extremely good into their composition. It was a very good R5 pick for Fnatic. I wish Vitality would have picked the Olaf away after seeing the Varus Ashe, because we've seen teams like 100 Thieves and like Dplus, Kia. They have taken the Olaf into very static, like low mobility, high pressure bot lanes like that and completely dominate in the mid and late game once the grouping happens. So I wish we had actually seen Vitality take that pick away, because it also really shut down the lead that they had on the Kalista. And unfortunately, while Vitality got a really strong early lead in a lane that we haven't seen won by you know, any, you know, Ashe Varus basically just steamrolls anybody at this point in time.
Yeah.
But they won the lane, and then they just kind of failed, and Carzzy got shut down on the top side, and it got super messy, and they didn't snowball their lead very cleanly. But they're a fun team to watch. Like, I find them compelling to watch for reasons like this.
No, I agree. To me, like, they actually are like a solid enough team. They even look like they're well coached. It's just an occasional player underperformance is what lets them down.
Yeah, the Olaf pick in R5 was great. The Olaf pick in R5 was great. And I think that was a big factor in this game, is that Olaf's not there, then Vitality, it's a lot easier. But, you know, even the double exhaust into the Olaf is good, right? Because if he threatens the backline, you actually have 2 exhausts to place on him. But yeah, it was too much. Some of these like late round red side Olaf picks have been very powerful around the world into the right compositions, and it was well utilized here.
Also, just mental to see Razor play fucking Volibear, mate. Like, all right, go for it, I guess.
Dude, Volley's strong right now.
It's cool, though, yeah.
Volley is very strong. You know, I've been talking about this a lot on my stream, but Press the Attack Volibear is fucking crazy strong early game right now. You basically win.
Waiting for someone else to pick him up, though. Where the fuck are all the picks?
No, they do. It comes up quite a bit. It comes up quite a bit
not
these
LEC,
days.
though.
Yeah.
LEC doesn't play a bit.
We're seeing it more in LEC. It's not like every game, but we're also starting to see bans of it, you know, come through. You know, typically like El Yoya comes to mind as like one of the historic Volibear players within the league. It has been very popular for him. But this pick is really strong in the early game. Like with PTA, you can basically win any duel with any jungler. You know, at level 2, level 3, he's crazy strong. So skirmishes, he's extremely good. He's extremely good at invading. Obviously, tower diving, when he can turn off the tower, sets you up for a lot of success as a professional team, makes tower dives extremely easy. Yes, he falls off in the mid and late game, and he doesn't provide as much utility, but he's still very good even mid and late game for accelerating the game during sieges, because people can't hide behind turrets in their base anymore if he's turning them off and you're attacking them. So you can walk up a lot farther. So he can be very good, but a lot of it's what you can get done in the early game. And yeah, he's strong. So we will see more of him. And he is super good. And I would encourage people definitely to play him in solo queue. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of my ongoing takes on the LEC. Like, we're coming up on the last week of competition. Fnatic and G2 are number one, and I think surprisingly, it's just Heretics and Vitality have turned it around a little bit. Heretics without perks looks significantly better, and Vitality coming back, and like Daglus's improving performance, I think, is the big story there. And it seems like the Mac coaching on a long enough timeline is doing work for Vitality. Like, by bringing over that coaching staff from Mad Lions, Mac and Pad has been effective at developing those players. Who could have known, given the history of Mad Lions and new players? But
by the way, this is also where, though, I feel like the problem with the Heretics storyline goes like this. Too many people are just obsessed with the perks angle. So their whole thing is sort of like, well, then how are they winning without perks? It's not the Zero guy. He's had like one fucking big pop-off ever. Like, it's the fact that they changed Kaiser for Trimby, who is known to be someone who never shuts the fuck up on the mic. Like, I think that's the game changer right there. Like, Zero isn't his perks, but that's what's good. He just plays with all right League of Legends. And then they actually Trimby pickup looks inspired again. By the way, how many people are going to pick up Trimby and then turn their whole team around before people figure out maybe he's a good player? Like, seems pretty good to me.
I mean, it must be attitude issues, right? It's the only logical conclusion. It's the only logical conclusion is that him in the team environment, doesn't do well, or that he doesn't have the coaches or support staff to rein him in. Because objectively, he's a very, very skilled player.
Ridiculous, isn't it?
But also, I mean, just not being perks and not just like dying stupidly is a big factor in Heretics' success. And Heretics has a very
doing a good job in that sense.
Yeah, Heretics has a very soft schedule going forward. I mean, their final week of competition, they're 4-2, and their final week is Mad Lions, Koi, Karmine Corp, and Giant X. Like, they can absolutely 3-0 this and end 7-2, and like potentially with a second seed, if G2 or Fnatic can somehow drop a game. So. Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting split of LEC. I don't think like we're gonna see very good performances from Mad Lions or Karmine Corp, even if they do make it to the next stage of the competition. But it's important that we're seeing at least some level of competition in the mid table, because it felt like the mid table was pretty boring in winter.
It's way better this split.
Yeah, it's way better this split.
And to be fair, at least if it is, which people always thought, let's be real, like, unless BDS turns it around, as of right now, we'll be G2 for that get MSI. By the way, I'm fine with that. Like, I hope BDS does get it together. I still think they have the pieces to be really good, but they obviously slow start. It's taken them a while to figure it out, still adapting a bit. So they've got a chance because playoffs is so many matches, but right now you would take G2 for that. It's just easy, isn't it?
I think it's hard to compete just with the rosters on those two teams.
Yep.
Like, those teams on paper should be the best teams with the roster that they have. So it's just weird that Fnatic struggled as much as they did. And BDS, I think, overperformed last split.
This is why people will always, sadly, Monty, interpret it as an insult when I say that teams like Mad Lions and BDS win primarily because of like the style of the team and the cohesion, not in coaching, not because of like individual player strength. Because, bro, even when BDS was at their top, I never ever looked at their lineup and was like, wow, look at all these players. It's more like, holy shit, they're doing a really good job and they're making like this player's weaknesses covered, or they've sort of found a way to enhance their strength here. Like, it was always like they were getting more than you expect out of their players. Like, BDS is not some all-star team, guys. Like, I'm very impressed that they were able to be a contender for so many splits. That shows me like they're doing more than you even would expect potentially. Like, there's a world where BDS's lineup could just be like the 5th best team, and that wouldn't be like totally unreasonable. That's actually sort of what you'd expect, maybe.
No, but
by the way, I'm not saying even though they're not that good, though. I'll tell you the one guy who still keeps cooking, fucking Labrov, mate. I said it on Twitter. Yep. There is a player where, listen, I would have given up on him. He was around for years, guys. But I'll tell you what, the fucking faithful have been rewarded in BDS because, man, does he look good nowadays. It's just like a totally different player. Mate, not only are his mechanics bonkers, he actually does have a fucking really strong vision game. Like, he contributes to the team. He works with any ADC apparently now. It's like one of those rare cases where you think, oh, it's never going to happen. And then they just blossom at the end. It's one of the sad thing is I was going to make a reference to, I'll do it now, to that fucking shit Dennis the Menace American movie from the 90s where that neighbor has that flower that's going to blossom after like 40 years. Do you remember that story? And then Dennis the Menace fucks them and he misses it, doesn't see it. But you doing it, even Monty didn't see that one. It was a movie from the 90s, whatever. It wasn't good. It was American. Skip it.
I skipped that one. I'm sorry.
The reference is fire.
Labrov though I agree has been performing well, and especially because on an individual level, this roster is like pretty flawed and pretty limited. But again, it's been the coaching staff that has really done a lot with creating versatility here. But yeah, I think there's only so far you can go with this in a reasonable expectation of teams, right? Like the flaws should not be putting this team as the best or second best team in this league. That is a very bad sign for LEC. I agree. Like they should be like a fourth place
you know
team.
What the irony is? The irony is those two tweets, because they weren't even BM Monty. That's what people still don't get. Those were real analysis. Those two tweets, I did the one last year in spring when they were at the best, where I said Nook better enjoy right now because essentially in the future he won't get to look like because he won't be on as good a team. And then the other tweet was I did the one this year when they were the top team in the LEC, and I said that if they're a top team, it indicts the LEC essentially. Those two will age fabulously, guys. I'm telling you, those will go down as two of my better tweets about League of Legends. I do a lot of shit post about League. Those are pretty good actually. I think I nailed the angles on those ones kind of ahead of people. So you will just wait and see. I do still hope they'll get together and be like a team that'll challenge for the title. They can still do it.
Yeah, I hope so, but I think that they are. I mean, they're just flawed. And like we talked a lot about how they were getting advantages in terms of like picking like 3 bot lane champs that they probably shouldn't have kept getting. And like playing around that as well as Adam's champion pool. But I think you just get figured out in that way. So we'll see if the coaching staff can continue to adapt. But it's tricky. I think it's tricky with this particular roster. They figured out a way to make it work and like get enough champions through the pick and ban phase to kind of play the same style. But I'm not. They need to have more styles if they're really going to be a contender. That's the problem.
Yes.
All right, let's take a quick break. Unless you want to wrap up with any other LEC teams, and we'll take a break. And when we come back, we will do some viewer questions for you.
Right, we're back to do our viewer questions segment. If you want to be the aforementioned viewer and ask a question and support Last Free Nation Network, all the network, everyone who's on it, then you can subscribe to our Discord, the Last Free Nation Discord, and then you will be eligible to access the channel where you can ask the questions.
There you go. We probably won't do that many questions today, guys, because we're already on the longer end with this episode. And we've been answering all of them for the last few weeks. So start at the top, and if we don't get it to you this time, we will answer yours on a future one if you ask again. As two hardworking and successful people, how much sleep do you get? I work a basic 9 to 5 and struggle with a lack of sleep sometimes. How do you cope with lack of sleep? So I try and get like 7-8 hours of sleep a night as much as I can. Obviously, with 2 young kids, that can be difficult. I function very badly on low amounts of sleep. So I do tend to make it a priority for myself. How about you, Thorin?
I don't know that I have like a secret. Like I would say I do need sleep. I'm not amazing at it. I would just say it's more like, believe it or not, Monty, I'm on this whole tip. I'll probably do like a video on my side channel, the one that's about non-esports, about this concept where what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to take what seems like a negative, but that in a way, and like this is basically the premise of actually how I think human development happens, is that it always starts with a negative. It's why there's that famous saying everyone knows, like necessity is the mother of invention. Unless essentially there's some sort of a force, evolution people would say, you know, selective pressure or environmental pressure or something. Unless something spurred you on, you won't make like the level up that you often need to solve the problem, and in doing so become better. So what I would say is this. I used to be really bad at this. Like I used to stay up doing work until 1 a.m. and then I would have like 3 hours of wind down time, and then I'd go to bed at like 4 or 5 in the morning. And then luckily I didn't have to be up, but even so, you're never going to sleep till 3. You're always going to have like broken sleep. You'd wake, I don't know, midday and have 6 or 7 tops, 5 sometimes. What actually changed was, for totally other reasons, I actually just had a scenario where basically I'll just say this, someone asked me to not be as loud at the very end of the day. So initially I just thought, to accommodate them, is there a way I could sort of schedule stuff earlier in the day, like do most of my work at the beginning of my day? And mate, that has been the game changer. Because the key thing is, since I can set my own hours, and so in general, I don't have to usually get up for something unless it's the odd show that's like at 11 or something. And in general, I can choose when I go to sleep. Actually, the key for me was just changing where my work was in my day. So I know this doesn't help people who have a set job, unfortunately, but for me, because I loaded it earlier and then I have my wind down time like planned in, it's made it now so it's more like I just have a reasonable time. I can always know I can get to sleep roughly, and I can kind of sense when I've used up my energy. And so I would just say it took reflection really helped me fix that aspect. But actually, like I say, I wouldn't actually have tried that. I would have still thought I could redline it and push it to the limit like I did before. But believe it or not, I actually am glad that person asked me to sort of like have less noise now, because it made me like rethink about how I schedule my work. It's actually better now. So I think actually making space for yourself is a big deal too.
I also find that, you know, at least I found, you know, even in college, like cramming all nights was actually less effective for me than just going to fucking bed and studying less, you know, because I would be at such a like dysfunctional place the next day that I would just perform worse, even with more studying at the expense of sleep. So for me, you know, I will always just be like, look, if I'm working on something really hard, it's more important for me to go to bed, because otherwise my entire day is just fucked the next day and I can't focus on anything properly. So it's like, yeah, I could spend an extra 2 hours doing this now, but the price of that is I can't do anything right the next day and I can't focus, or I can just like say, fuck it, we're just going to, you know, move this to a different time. So I think it's mostly just about planning. I also think like,
I'll give you one more though, Monty. I'll give you a quick other tip. There's a real tip for you actually though, which is the other mistake I used to make when I was young, is I used to think of like time constraints and discipline as something imposed on me externally. So it basically people force me to go sleep because I have to get up at a certain time for school, or people make me do this thing,
right,
and then I don't have any time left. But when you're an adult and you can choose what to do, I'll tell you what, for real, everyone who's already an adult by the way is going to go, yeah, obviously. But I'll bet there's a lot of immature people. This might actually like blow your mind. You know, when it's like, pick whatever time you should go to bed. Pick what time. Maybe you're supposed to go to bed at 2 a.m. rather, or 12 p.m. Whichever time it is. If at 1 minute before your bedtime, a new video drops on YouTube from your favorite creator, or a new episode comes out, do you go, oh, fuck it, I'm staying up for this? I don't do that anymore, mate. That's where I've actually now leveled up as a human. I used to be really bad for, if I could, I'd just like make myself stay up when I shower to watch something. When instead I was like, it's okay, I'll find time tomorrow and I'll watch it tomorrow and schedule it in. That's a game changer right there. Like, it'll always be there for tomorrow. You don't have to get to it now. In fact, why not just enjoy it tomorrow without feeling tired or wrecking your whole day?
Yeah.
If you actually, that's another thing that's really important in my opinion. Schedule your free time. Don't just procrastinate it. Like, if you want to watch a big movie, like I said, that just came out, 2 days from now, pick out a time where you can just carve out 3 hours and nothing will bother you, and just enjoy it. Don't let it don't let the short term like thing of like, but I want to watch it now, I can watch it now, wreck 2 days into your future and wreck your whole cycle. Be a bit more adult with like when you plan out your free time, even if that also pays dividends. That's really helped me a lot, mate.
Yeah. For example, right now, I'm super busy and I'm working 6 days a week, but I also make sure that my Saturdays are free so that I can take my older son out and do something with him every Saturday. And like, it's just the two of us. And so I look forward to that, but it's it's free time that I schedule.
Just the two of us.
Of course, we got a meme question. Architect of Korean esports based Joe Marsh asks, my stepsister is getting married. Any advice on how to get over this tragedy? It's just a stupid porn reference.
The reason that's funny, though, I'll give him credit. It's edgy because it'd already be edgy if he said his cousin with the implication. To say your stepsister is wild. Like, fair play. The problem is, Monty, that's exactly the sort of humor that doesn't exist anymore. But if you ever watched like comedies in the 90s and 2000s in America, it was all that humor, of course. It was all that shit.
The way you pronounce Zweiru name is same as Spyro the Purple Dragon. No, it's not. Fuck off.
That sounds like a fake. I don't know. I think he means Zviro. He means like that. I think.
Zviro? Okay, maybe.
Maybe. Because to be fair, they do sometimes make the W into a V. That's what.
Yeah, I think it's probably Zviru or something like that.
It's not Spyro though. Definitely. Okay, it's all good. It's all good. You almost got us on that one. You almost got us.
Watched Thorin's Dune video, but was just wondering in general what you two thought about Dune 2 as a whole, and if you think it's a step up from the first or not. I thought it was a lot better than the first one.
Oh, I did as well. Here's the problem. I still think it's got elements that I don't like. Like, what's funny is I even said it this way. I even told you this. What I tell everyone, the short capsule review is this. I think it's way better than the first one. I think the first one was really barren. And as we've talked about before, I think even what a lot of people hyped about the first one was either they were hyped because they don't know Dune, so they've just never encountered any of the material, or they were hyped because they do know Dune and their brain filled in all the blanks. So actually, I think a load of people were way too generous right out the gate on Dune Part 1. Dune Part 2, look, it has been overhyped too, because people were saying, like, it's the greatest sci-fi sequel of all time. It's like, you've already ruined it doing that, dickhead. What about Terminator 2?
Empire Strikes Back
exactly,
exists.
like, you've already ruined it with that hyperbole. But here's how you know it is mega. Because actually, that whole topic that became the main thing of the discourse on Twitter of the Chani character, I think that character is shit, but it doesn't ruin the film. Actually, the rest of the film holds up enough that it's still really enjoyable. Like, for example, Monty, I can actually do a video on my side, but one thing I found was excellent in this movie. I loved all the stuff on Gady Prime, the hardcore and shit.
Oh, it was
I thought
awesome.
that was fabulously shot. It was really cool.
Amazing.
The aesthetic was dope, wasn't it? Like, that was like some really high art for me. Some of that, they were really cool. So some of that stuff was fire. Yeah, I thought it was really
You know what,
Doa, but it's okay.
Doa told me they actually shot that in black and white infrared, which is why it looks so fucking crazy.
Oh, right. Okay.
And apparently what Doa said, what Doa said, it was a really big risk because when they shot it, they had to like commit to doing the black and white infrared. And if it looked fucked up, then they just lost all the scenes or like had to reshoot them. But it looks really cool as a result. So all the outside stuff. So basically, like the hotter something is in terms of body heat, the blacker it was, which I thought was it looked beautiful. I love all the like liquid black fireworks and stuff too. Like, anyway, if you guys want more on this, basically Doa and I actually did a Dune 2 discussion already on the Last Free Nation Culture channel that we just released. And on top of that, Thorin, Richard, and I will be doing a separate Dune video because our next foreplay arc is Denis Villeneuve movies, and Dune is one of those movies. So we have the Dune 2 Third Legion show right now. There will be a separate Dune where I'm sure we will talk about both Dune 1 and Dune 2 at length. So we'll have two separate Dune movies or two separate Dune shows on the Culture channel. So if you want more, just subscribe to Last Free Nation Culture on YouTube or, Nerd Legion and Foreplay on your favorite Spotify/other podcasting service. In the vein of Murphy's Law or Occam's Razor, what new principle or truism would you mint to try to pass on your esports wisdom?
Well, the funny thing is, I'm almost certain this is like a sort of a saying or a proverb. I'm just misremembering where it's from. But there is something along the lines of, in light of all the Saudi shit, the idea that like if you actually like put your principles to the test and you don't have them anymore, they were just luxury principles. It was just an idea in your head of who you thought you were or wanted other people to believe you were. But when it actually came push to shove, you never ever held those opinions. You just gave them up immediately. I mean, I guess actually, you know what, Monty? I guess in a way, I actually do know what the slogan was. It's from the Bible. It's that line that says you can't serve two masters. I believe, by the way, I'm not joking. I believe that as like a life philosophy, mate. I genuinely believe it is impossible to serve two masters equally. You will always give up to one, but here's the other problem. You might not know until you are tested between the two masters. But what the two masters principle showed, guys, is that when it came push to shove with Saudi Arabia and their money, nobody believed in the diversity and the LGBTQ stuff. They just believed in money and power. And they showed that by their actions because they were given a choice to show which is more important, money and power or having all these values, and they chose money and power. So I think that's just I think from what I've learned about the esports industry, that would be a big thing I would pass on, because a lot of what annoys me is I think back on all the content we've done for 10 years, and some of it, while it was great content on camera, it was entertaining, some of it was just spinning our wheels, and you realize now, if you're just more cynical, it was actually very obvious what was going on sometimes. Like they really were just scumbags, the whole time. It turns out it was like the fucking meme of the guy, the astronaut, like, wait a minute, you mean they never had any values to begin with? Always did. Like, that fucking me is that one in it. What would yours be? What would y'all think?
Well, I think along the same vein, it's just like the absence of money the void of money will always be filled with a worse form of money.
Yes.
It's basically like, it's just always been true at esports. Like, it's just been grifters or blood money or money laundering or, venture capital. And like, when that shit goes away, it's never the drive to build something sustainable after that. It's just going to the next easiest form of money at whatever cost. And now here we are in fucking like human rights abusing authoritarian governments funding our scene. Like, it sucks balls, guys. It's terrible. But it is actually wild to me that every time there's a void of money, just another worse form of money just shows up. Why can't we just let it die? What's been happening to LEC? It's just been getting progressively worse over time. Like, the gameplay is getting hard to watch. Man, that KC versus SK game was fucking trash. Like, it was bad. But what, like, are we really like holding up NRG versus 100 Thieves as the pinnacle of gameplay? And fuck that. It's not just the West. I had to watch KT versus Dplus be an absolute dumpster fire of a series. Okay.
True. It's why low key. The reason why that Milky Way story is like a fucking gift is because, mate, all we had at this point is the top LPL teams and a couple of LCK teams. So actually to have this one player come out of nowhere and make like his team relevant, that is a cool narrative. Without that, there are a lot of really, really good teams in League of Legends right now. Like, that player's carrying that team into relevance is sick, yeah. Yeah,
and especially also because even LPL, like with LNG just like shitting the bed and the JDG super team
a lot of
breaking
the dark horses just fell apart in that league, sadly. It's really sad.
So, I mean, LPL has been pretty tough. Like, NIP, like, turning out to be completely fraudulent.
And that's sad as fuck, eh? Yeah. It looked plausible after the first few weeks, but it's just sad now, mate.
Yeah. So a lot of the narratives have been kind of dying. And, like, we had Kwangdong there for a while looking promising, and then they decided just to shit the bed. So now all we've got is FPX and Milky Way. But anyway, I don't think it's unique to LEC is my point. There's been a lot of garbage league in a lot of regions. In a hypothetical world where you get to...
We should probably also contrast it, to be fair, Monty. If you're going to contrast the state of the game, we did also just come off like a pretty good state of the game from the end of last year. Like, we were in kind of a very good position. So I think in contrast, the drop is what feels so jarring, right? Because I thought, I agreed with you. I thought the Metro Worlds was pretty good, mate. It was quite interesting around that time.
I thought it was a good tournament. Yeah, it was a good tournament. It changed a lot over the course of the tournament, too. Yes. There was a lot of, like, variety in the meta over the duration. In a hypothetical world where you get to play as a GM with unlimited budget and more charisma than perks, how would you build a team around Milky Way? Well, you get a supportive mid laner. So, I don't know, Xiaohu? Yes. Like, I think Xiaohu Milky Way might be interesting. Fuck it, Scout Milky Way. Let's go carries. Like, I think those two would be very interesting.
That would be amazing, man.
I mean, honestly, here's the thing about Milky Way. Legitimately, life is working really well with Milky Way. Like, do you even change life? Like, life seems to be willing to play wacky ass supports.
They definitely are on the same page. Like, it's clear that life just does whatever he's asked.
Yeah. So, you know, in a way, like, just getting some guy you can leave in the bot lane by himself. Like, you know, Prey would be that guy historically who you could just like, who's just going to sit there in the bot lane and chill and still be relevant and good in the late game. So, you know, maybe Deft is that guy. To a certain degree as well, who can just kind of be left down there to his own devices and do relatively well without a lot of resources. Because life, honestly, his synergy in terms of engages with Milky Way and his ability to be on the map with Milky Way has been a big part of their success. So I don't know if you take that away. As for top lane, like, I know Zika hasn't been good this year, but Zika is probably the kind of player that you would want in that role. Zika, 369, you know, like guys who know their job, Keen, guys who know their job within the team, and who are capable of playing carries, but also will, you know, do their duty when it comes to playing more supportive top laners as well, I would say.
I'm with you, though. The obvious thing from the current FPX that seems like it should be the thing to take away from this is that whoever the mid laner is should probably be someone who plays for the jungle. Because that's what the care guy does.
Like Showmaker.
He clearly knows what his job. Oh, that would be a great one, yeah. He could be a carry and play for him, yeah.
Yeah, Showmaker is a good one. I think Zhao is a pretty good one.
Yagao?
Yeah, Yagao is a pretty good one.
I actually think you could make some banger teams around this guy. It's such a unique strength in it. I agree on the one with the fucking life player, though. Like, I don't even think he actually is overall in isolation that good a player. I just think it's this synergy's brought something out of him, mate. Like,
yeah, he looks great.
It's like the joke is what used to be an int, suddenly he's a player because he's gone in with Milky Way. And I'll tell you what, mate, it makes that fucking silly Rumble pick about 1,000 times better if you notice that.
Dude,
like,
it's fun as fuck to watch this Rumble.
It's dope, though, isn't it? Like, in their games, it's sick, yeah.
Is Xpeke one of the many OG LoL players that has quietly moved on from esports? I have no idea what Xpeke is doing.
I don't know what he's doing. Don't know.
I think he made a bunch of money from like Origin and like the purchase of the brand.
He did, as far as I know, yes.
So I think he's probably just like, Spain's not very expensive. I think he's probably just chilling in Spain, living his life.
If people don't know, as a real human being, Expeke was one of the most normal people actually you would meet out of all the pros, especially the old school pros that were mega nerds. Like, he is the guy for real where, like, this is why I would actually compare Perks' career to Expeke's. Like, it's not just how they play in the game, it is their charisma that is what sells. Like, the thing about Expeke is he's the person where, like, I would imagine he's not in any way sat around haunted about not playing or being. I bet he's just fucking being chilling, having Savasa with his fucking boys and some money and just having a cool time watching the football. I bet he's just one of those guys, mate. It just seems pretty laid back to me. Always did.
Yeah, I think he's probably just hanging out. You are tasked with writing, producing a Hannibal film, like the historical character. How would you tell the story? What plot points would you focus on? Well, I think you have to get into the background of, I think you start with like the Hannibal origin story where he's in Spain and he's growing up with like, you know, a hatred of the Roman Empire as like a part of a Carthaginian colony in Spain. And because the thing that's interesting about Hannibal is that he was kind of rejected by Carthage itself, even though he was trying to do things. He was like, you know, in terms of his family and his lineage, he was Phoenician, like, you know, the Carthaginians. But he was kind of treated as an outsider by Carthage itself, even though he was literally like fighting wars in Italy on behalf of Carthage. So he was like, I think you have to show his background and his father in order to really drive that point home. And then, of course, you get into like his march, his like assembling of the army and his march into Italy and taking the elephants over the Alps. And then you get into Cannae and, you know, eventually his defeat, right? So I think allegedly they're making a Denzel Washington Hannibal movie, which is, by the way, an incredibly weird casting because Denzel, even though he might be one of the best actors alive, is way too old to play Hannibal because Hannibal was in his 30s when he was doing all this shit. He wasn't like 60. Also, just going to put this out there. Phoenicians look different than Denzel Washington. They're from the Middle East. Just going to toss that one in there. You know, remember that Carthage was a colony, a North African colony of Phoenicians from Tyre in the Middle East on the Mediterranean. So kind of a weird casting decision, in my opinion, even though he's a great actor. Maybe he'll crush it. I don't know.
Here's the thing, Monty. I would do it like this. I would do it where it's one of those stories where the film starts with like, it's sort of like, you know, desolate aspects of Rome and buildings burnt. And it's sort of like, I almost did it. I almost got the revenge I sought. And then it skips back. And then, like you say, then it's him as a child growing up. And then he's undergoing all the shit with the Romans. And they're the oppressive yoke. And it's like, you know, essentially, I would even just lead with the idea. He doesn't make it at the end. But it's about like, it's the idea of a valiant effort, isn't it? It's the idea of, it's essentially like a bigger concept of the plot of 300. You can't actually beat the God Emperor, but you can make him bleed. And you could show the world that, hey, maybe it is possible to actually like battle back. That's the cool. Because the thing is, if you do this story right, it is like, you know, it's a tragedy, but with heroic elements, isn't it?
Well, it's also like, you know, he shows up in Carthage again. And he's like, I'm doing it for you guys. And they're like, we don't want that. And he's like, what the fuck, man? Like, I've been fighting this whole war. And been quite like shockingly successful at it because he was, you know, fighting against all the odds, basically. Explain it like I'm 5. How good was Flash in his prime? I mean, maybe the best esports player ever. Do you still think he's the best of all time?
I do, sort of low-key. Like, here's the thing. What made Flash impossible was this. He didn't come along at the beginning of StarCraft Brood War, guys. He came along at the end. And in the time period, he was number 1 in 2010, right? The classic thing about Brood War, remember, is there's 3 races. And so no matter which you are, everyone who's a pro player has a weak matchup. Maybe it's their own, like PvP famously is very coin flippy. So sometimes Bisu would lose to Stork, even if Bisu's better than Stork. Famously, obviously, if you're a Zerg, the Terran has the advantage over you. So if you are Jiddo, maybe you should lose to Flash in the big match. But the point is, everyone has a weakness. When Flash was at his peak, he was making every single final and he had like a 70% plus win rate in all 3 matchups. Like, it's why, if people don't know, when he returned from StarCraft 2 to play Brood War again in ASL, he decided to challenge himself by playing random, as in, that's even impossible. And by the way, if it wasn't for the maps, he could have won some of those fucking ASLs playing random. Like, that essentially, in a game where people did think like APM was massive, etc., this guy never actually looked like he had the craziest APM. He didn't. He had that sort of like effective APM angle where he just never has too little APM. He just really was a guy who looked like he completed a game that basically can't be completed. So I do think if you pick any other player in history, you could take Faker and Simpler. Look, they're all incredible players and they have their own claim to be the best. But like the way this guy just comprehensively felt like he just mastered the game, I don't think you'll ever see anything like that. And crucially, Korean StarCraft at the time was incredibly competitive, and there were literally all of your rivals were paid like 200k to sit in a room and practice 14 hours a day to beat you. So to then like be the ultimate bourgeois god of that, it's why the best simple way to explain Flash is this, guys. Are you ready? Here's the capsule review of why Flash is the best ever in esports. In Brood War, there used to be constant debates when a champion like Jadon comes up to the top of should he be considered a bourgeois, which is a player that stands above all. The joke is that debate with Flash used to also exist, and then when they finally broke the people who were against Flash, they didn't even call him bourgeois, they called him God. As in, the initial thing is, and they're like, actually, no, he's not, he's just the greatest ever. Yeah. Case closed.
Yeah, you also have to understand that it was very hard, given the level of the competition, to reach like 70% win rates in RTS.
Mate. That's insane. That's insane. Remember, in Pro League, they even put people in the snipe here who are practicing for that one matchup that you don't know who's going to be, and he's still winning 70%. That's impossible, mate. No one can do that. If you don't know, I believe he like broke all the ELO records on Team Liquid, etc. Like, if the guy was like impossible how good he was. Like I said, even that thing, Monty, of making all 6 finals in the 1v1 leagues in a year. Bro, no one's done that ever. Pick anyone. No one has ever done that. The joke is, this is how good he was. When he lost 2 of the finals, people dissed him. Coming out winning 6 out of 6. But I've always thought, by the way, that's actually a great sign for you. The same thing happened in 2022 with FaZe, Monty. There would be games FaZe would win in CSGO where they would get criticised for winning too narrowly. And I'm like, bro, when you get criticised for your wins, you just go at that point in time. You know what I mean? You're supposed to be criticised for losses, not that like your wins aren't dominant. Like that, they did the same thing last year to JDG, Monty. Did you see those haters? Like, you say JDG's the best ever, but some of those series, they're winning 3-2. They're fucking winning, though, aren't they? Like, they are winning them all, though. So, yeah, he's one of those players where, here's how you know he's legit. The more you look into it, the more impressed you will get. The stories, there's no fake aspects of the story. You will just be, the more context you know, the more it is imposing how good this guy was. It's like impossibly good.
Yeah, he's great. What's the most, for legal reasons, that was a joke thing you've said on broadcast or a show? I don't know.
I'm surprised. The sad thing about that was he actually made it cool in the end. I was expecting the usual question on By the Numbers would be like, what for legal reasons would that? But that you actually did mean. It's like, so in other words, just missed the whole point of the thing of being a joke. But what would you say? What was it? What was the actual thing? Is the most banter or something? What was the angle?
For legal reasons, that was a joke thing you've said on broadcast or a show. I don't really understand.
What was the worst or something? What does he mean?
What was the most, for legal reasons, that was a joke thing you've said on broadcast or a show? So I guess we had to say
there's a missing word or something. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know how to answer that.
I know what he's trying to ask, but I don't. It's like he's trying to. Like, is he trying to ask like, what's the funniest? Maybe. Like, what's the funniest thing that we have to pretend was a joke?
I think we're saying like we have to say legally that it was a joke, because maybe if we don't make it very explicit that it's a joke, it could be taken incorrectly. I don't know if I've ever really done that though. So
I don't know about that, man. I don't know about that.
Were you surprised by the trade compensation received for Justin Fields? Steelers 2025 6th round pick turns into a 4th round pick depending on playing time. Monty is a Broncos fan that watched Russell Wilson last year. Who do you think is starting for the Steelers as of the end of 2025? I mean, look, I'm not going to...
That's a good question. At the end of 2025. Right. I like the question. That's a good one. That's legit.
I mean, look, Justin Fields has not been a good quarterback, and he was taken, I think, 9th in the first round by the Bears. and he has not lived up, obviously, to that first round. He's panicky, relies on his feet too much, doesn't really have vision, doesn't make good decisions about where to pass on the field. So I think he has a lot of athletic ability, but he hasn't shown the game sense that he needs. So I'm not really surprised by the fact that they wanted to get rid of him, especially since they're almost certainly drafting Caleb Williams from USC with that first round pick. They just needed to clear the roster, so getting anything for him, and apparently that was just the market, right? And Russell Wilson took like a vet minimum deal basically because the Broncos are paying him. But Russell Wilson, if you look at the stats from last year, it doesn't look terrible, but the eye test was fucking miserable. If you actually watched those Broncos games last year, he was fucking bad. Like he basically can't see the middle of the field, and so he will miss a bunch of reads, open receivers. He had a bazillion like really garbage check down plays. He's not as athletic as he used to be because he's getting older, so he's less able just to run around in circles and escape, pass rushers and then make the like deep bomb play that he used to make on the Seahawks. So I mean, I don't know. I think it's probably Russell Wilson at the end of the season because I don't have a lot of faith in Justin Fields, but it's not going to be pretty. I mean, you're coming off of Kenny Pickett, so it's not going to be worse probably, but it's not going to be a massive upgrade for the Steelers. But Mike Tomlin's a very good coach, so maybe he can figure something out.
I would say in general, the problem is this. I actually do think Russell Wilson's career narrative is ruined now because his problem goes like this. At the beginning, he had one of the best defenses ever, so people ignored him. Then in the middle part, I actually do think he sort of carried the Seahawks and was pretty good. But I agree with you, Monty. The problem is he still plays like he has like a fucking 28-year-old body, mate, and he does not. Like he's not that guy anymore. And so his game, like this is why actually I would even give the example of like what he used to do in the scenarios you're talking about was like the old double lift move where like you get yourself into a bad spot, but you get out of it with your skills. That doesn't last forever. And one day, if you don't have the skills, you fucking just making bad decisions at that point in time. It looks bad. Yeah. So now everyone will just think he was shit forever, sadly. But whatever. It's all good. It's not my team.
We'll do one more question, guys, because it's now after midnight my time. And speaking of the question about going to bed, I need to go to bed. And this show has also been almost 4 hours long. Have either of you read Goethe's Faust? And do either of you take a like to Goethe? I love Goethe's Faust. I haven't read it in probably since I was in college, but I very much enjoyed reading it in translation. Have you read Faust?
I have never read it. I'm a big fan of that movie. I've recommended many times from 1994, the one that's made by like Jan Svankmajer or whatever, which is like a one using stop animation and claymation and stuff. That's cool. I am a big fan of the Goethe, like the whatever it is, the Trials of fucking what is it, Werther's or whatever the fucking get. What's the name of that guy?
Young Werther.
Yeah, that one. I do think that's a fucking banger. If anyone knows that one.
But yeah, I mean, I just love the concept of Faust, right? The concept of the educated man doing the deal or having the relationship with the demon or the devil, because it does make you think about what somebody's price is and what the lengths that people are willing to go to unlock their desires, especially in the realm of knowledge. And so, I mean, I think it's a brilliant piece of literature. I really enjoy it. Would recommend. All right, guys, that's going to do it for us for today. Like I said, it's been a long one because there was a shocking amount of bullshit to go through for today's episode. We'll be back with more for next week, especially as we head into playoffs. It's the last week of regular season in LCK. And we'll get some more LCS playoff games to discuss, as well as LEC and LPL moving along in the regular season. So we will see you then.